about them at all.
I did see that. Yeah,
Oh
I forget
yeah,
how he said
dude,
it, but
no, the question was like, how much of an aspect does like the financial situation of average Americans play into your
yeah,
actions in this Iran war? And he
nothing.
goes, I don't think about it at all.
Don't care
Doesn't
about it.
know.
yeah.
Don't care about them at all. I just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon.
I,
Every other word out of his mouth is they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
I saw a tweet. It's like, dude, this used to be like a career-ending political move. If you said like, I do not care about the financial well-being of the American
Dude,
citizen.
he's got a couple good ones. I mean, that one, there's another clip that they're going to play on repeat in all the commercials, next election cycle where he was talking about, we don't have money for health care and Medicaid and health insurance, when he was cutting stuff like that and raising the military budget. We don't have money for all these things at home. We have a war to fight. I'm missing. That's not exactly how he said it, but it's basically what he said. Like, we don't have money for you people at home. War. Gonna
Lou,
give
did
it
you
to the
see
war.
this one? I think we brought this one up a couple episodes back. It was a Marco Rubio clip, and he goes, "Could you imagine what Iran would look like today if they hadn't spent all of their money on defense spending and their military?"
Yeah, yeah.
No,
We're gonna.
yeah,
He wants a
it's insane.
$1.5 trillion budget. I mean, it's crazy. We're the ones spending the
I
money.
mean, the $300 a barrel thing. I mean, I he's not wrong. Like I also would have. I'm also kind of surprised that it's not even higher. I mean, the fact that he's portraying it as if he's like, oh yeah, that was like part of the plan. It was supposed, I was just totally
Hmm.
gonna be fine with it being $300 a barrel. It's like, all right, I would hope that that's not the case. But I mean, it is a good. Like I've been kind of trying to figure out like why is it not spiking? I was expecting 3 4 weeks ago for us to see oil prices shooting up towards the 200s at least, and then they've been relatively stagnant over the last like month.
I'm not an expert in it by any means, but from what I'm trying to understand it, there's kind of two markets. There's like, if I wanted to buy a barrel of oil, there's the real price. If I wanted to buy it right now, and then
Yes.
there's the futures market, which is
Yes.
what they talk about. Like what that's more like speculative. Like he can put a tweet out and again tonight and say, oh, we're so, like last time he said there's like almost no chance of a deal. It's garbage. I didn't even read it. He could say tomorrow, oh, we're close. They're gonna give me everything. They're begging for a deal, and the market will react. People trade off that bullshit. You know,
Hmm.
but the price of oil doesn't really change. Like I
Yeah.
heard, I think Singapore got a shipment recently, and they paid like 230 a barrel from everything. Way
I brought
above
that up.
futures market.
Yeah, I brought that up last episode too. There's like the like actual like receivable price, which is like what you're actually paying, and then there's like the futures prices. And I had
Hmm.
said this last week. I don't know if this is like fake or not, whatever. Everything you read online, it's like fake now. But I'd read something that like banks were like basically placing shorts on the like oil futures to artificially keep the price of like futures low so that's not like a complete and total like shock to the economy right now.
The whole market's manipulated, so I wouldn't. I haven't heard. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to be playing all kinds of games like that. Plus, we're using our strategic reserve, us and everybody
Right.
else. Which there wasn't much left in it to begin with after Biden did that when we went to war with Russia. But that'll, it's a little bit of a stopgap measurement you could do, but it's not. It's supply and demand based,
Yeah,
it
it's not
should probably be
permanent.
worse
It's
than it
just
is, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I've got to imagine. I mean, when it comes to like like those short sellers, it could be that they're just doing Trump a solid and doing the country a solid and like shorting it to keep it artificially low. But I feel like more likely is that they have to know something that the public doesn't. And I mean, that could be. I would almost say that it's possible that it's like it's still just all one big manipulation tactic, but it's more so like okay, it's Trump who's putting on the show as if like oh yeah, like that whole idea of oh it could have been 300 is like he's just this is all kind of nonsense. The investors probably know they're like all right, all of this is kind of bullshit and nothing's actually really happening and like it's all spectacle. I think that's. But I'm at first I was leaning the opposite way, and I'm starting to come around and think like, all right, how many times is he going to say we're so close to a deal? Like you said, oh no, actually I hate that deal. We're not even close. And then ceasefire, and then they keep firing, and it's like that's been like every day for like 2 months. So it's like, all right, I think it's all literally just trying to trigger people to buy and sell and just market manipulation basically.
They're making money. They're making money on it. I mean, you can see the trades. They're timed perfectly with,
Yeah.
they get first mover advantage. I mean, he knows before he puts the tweet out,
Yeah.
you know, how it's going to manipulate the market, and he's already placed his bets, him and his buddies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the other clip I saw of him recently where he's in there and someone was asking him about the prediction market, saying, like, don't you think it's kind of a problem that all these insiders are making all this money off of your tweets and your policies?
Mhm.
And his response was, well, the world's kind of basically just a big casino, really. It's like, I guess.
Yeah.
But now
It was
it
a
is.
problem for the, did you see the one guy got arrested? Or,
I was gonna bring that up. They asked
Yeah.
Is that
Trump
the
about
Venezuela guy?
yeah, they asked Trump about that, and Trump goes like, it was a U.S. like Marine or whatever who had placed a bet on when Maduro would be ousted, and Trump said something along the lines of like, that sounds like Pete Rose betting on his own team.
yeah.
No, so I mean the idea, so that one, obviously there's got to be like some rules on the prediction markets where we can't just have people. I mean that's insider trading, but the reason I do
Yeah.
like the prediction markets, I think as they catch on, you're gonna start getting people who are like, who have public information, but the media is saying the opposite, and these are people who actually might work as like a government contractor or something, and so it's not that it's like insider trading that they're like giving away classified information like they're doing now, but if you get to the point where it's like, okay, eventually the people who are really good at doing this type of thing, who are actually understand what the what the policies are and can see what's going to happen, they're going to start making big money on these things. And then this is why I love the prediction markets just as like if as a concept if it grows, because then what you have is you now have a new form of news media where the most trustworthy news is going to be the people who bet on the thing to happen with the most money and are most successful. If you track someone's betting history and 95 times out of 100 they've gotten it right for big money, it's like, okay, if you see them bet that oil prices are going to go up, well, it's like CNN saying they're not. It's like, well, who am I going to trust? CNN gets it
Yeah.
wrong more often
I
than not,
agree.
and this guy gets it right.
That's a good take. I mean, I'm not, I think it's, pretty immoral, and, I'm not a big fan of gambling in general, but it's already taken over for polling. Like I've been watching the Thomas Massey race, and like you could see, like I don't trust any polls, but like when people putting their money on it, that
Yeah,
matters a lot more.
that's one of the interesting ones. It's very good for the polls, because like you'll see some shit online that's like this person's running away with this race, and then I go on Kelsey and it's like a pick 'em. It's like seems like you've got some kind of bias there, so it can help you like identify like where people's biases lie depending
Yeah.
on their reporting and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's definitely a good aspect of it. And even in that case, too, I mean, depending on how much this evolves, it becomes kind of not really gambling any more than, investing is gambling on stocks. It's like a lot of, majority of like what they would call dumb money, just people like me who are just kind of investing on the side. It's like majority of those people aren't actually doing like fundamental analysis. They're just kind of tracking, the Pelosi tracker, tracking like the Buffett tracker, and it's like those guys are serving as like a news source to, the very successful high level investors are serving as a news source to the other people who are kind of more like hobbyists. I think that's what it's going to become for politics, which I think is a good thing because otherwise, I mean, it's so easy to just get someone who's a very casual politics observer and convince them of some nonsense where it's like now it's if you do that and you're wrong, there's some accountability. If you want to pretend to be the news and get it wrong all the time, well then you're going to lose money doing so.
It's a good signal, but I don't like it's corrupt. I don't like the corruption of it. I don't think uh, you being part of the mission that's capturing Maduro should entitle you to bet your life savings the night before on what day it's going to happen, double your money,
Right.
triple your like. I think that most people would agree that that's cheating. Like that's
Yeah, yeah.
but
And
at
I
the
mean, it's the
same
Wild
time,
West.
like if we know that it's an insider, like the whole thing's set up for insider trading, you know? So I don't bet on Kalshi. But, you know, if you guys like I don't really bet on anything because I feel like it's all like even sports, like I feel like a lot of it's fixed. So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna bet on shit, you know, if I don't think it's a fair market to you know, so if you willingly want to put your money into that knowing that you're at a disadvantage. I mean, there's a certain percentage of people that do have insider information, whether it's stocks or Kalshi or what you know, Polymarket. I mean, if you want to do it, and you know, that's a free market. You go ahead, but I think you know, it's I don't like people making money that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I told this
fair enough.
story. There was the guy who he gave an interview, right, on like CNN, just say, and then he goes and does the interview, comes home, and then he sees on Polymarket, what will this guy say in his interview tomorrow on CNN? Well, they like pre-record the interviews. It's not like a live thing that you're watching on those like news programs. So he had pre-recorded it. So he was looking at it, going, "Well, I know exactly what I said on this." Or he could have like bet
Mhm.
and made boatloads of cash off that.
Yeah. Well, it kind of distorts like the way I think of a functioning economy should work is like the people who bring the most value and you know benefit the most other people in the society should get the largest cut of that pie. So I mean, you're not creating value, you're not benefiting society, you're not helping your neighbors by betting on insider information. You know what I mean?
So
That's not
I would disagree with that one a little bit actually.
well.
And I
I
mean,
guess in yours,
obviously, right now,
yeah. What you were saying is a good point though, because it helps
I think
predict
that's where
the
I
market.
think
I
that's
guess.
the actual the use case value of the prediction markets. I think right now we're in the Wild West where the same thing is like, you know, crypto. Nobody knew what crypto was useful for, but everyone was gambling on it for the first decade that it was a thing. Now people are starting to use it for actual applications. Same with, you know, tons of stuff probably. I think that's what this is. This is like right now it's just like a gambling casino Wild West, but eventually when it matures, regulations built around it, you know, we kind of cut some of the insider trading. I mean, the biggest problem with that Venezuela situation is not that some guy had insider information and managed to make some extra cash that he didn't deserve. The big problem is that 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 could have tipped off
Venezuela could have
Venezuela to
seen
what was happening.
right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, the value that they're providing is it's news, it's information, and it's like currently, what's the incentive structure for the news? It's definitely not to tell the truth the way the current market is. I think this is actually a better market for news is to like
Depends on
have some
yeah.
type of like finance tied to whether or not you're right. I think that's good, but it's just got to be regulated and make sure that it's not being like, you know, used for
How would
insider
that work
info,
if it's if
corruption, that type of thing.
but isn't your argument that it requires insider information to make it, um,
Accurate.
you know, valuable information?
Yeah, but I mean, it's got to be like, so one big thing I think is that it shouldn't be anonymous. So you shouldn't be able to make an anonymous account and start making a bunch of money. Now, obviously, it's not totally anonymous. They can track down who's got the money, probably, but
Government knows
there
who
shouldn't
it
be
is. We
anonymous.
might not though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it should be when you make an account, it should be kind of like social media. It should be like the value is, you know, if you're making these bets on there, then your entire betting history should be available for everyone to just publicly see because that's the value you're providing. If you want to treat it like a news source, well then you have to actually be a news source and not just like some anonymous guy who's like in the shadows making these kind of insider bets on war crimes. It's like, all right, there's certain things that are probably off limits, anything to do with war or, you know, classified information, obviously. But when it comes to things that are like, you know, what I mean, even the interview one, I mean, the guy shouldn't be able to bet on the information that he knew from the interview. But if there was somebody who was there watching it and it was like, you know, then the news coverage of it is totally inaccurate of what actually happened. It's like, okay, those people should be able to bet on it and say, no, I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. This is actually what happened. And by putting all this money on it, I'm kind of like putting my money where my mouth is. You should believe me rather than the lying CNN.
Yeah, it's just so conducive to insider trading because like the interview one, like all right, the guy was like working like the boom mic or whatever. It's like very hard to track down that that particular individual shouldn't be allowed to be betting on like this market, but like he was the boom guy, so he like overheard in like the sound room or whatever, and then there's way too much to exploit there.
It's just
Well, I mean,
evolved.
you definitely shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't be able to bet on something that already happened. I mean, that's like betting on a game, like a football game, after the game's over, but it just hasn't aired yet or whatever. If it,
there are
it's
sure
like,
things like if like you told, like, get good sleep tonight. We're going to get Maduro tomorrow. Like, it's basically a sure thing. You know it's going to happen. I mean, it's essentially like it's already happened. I mean, that's what you get. Like these insiders, they're betting that way because they know. They already know. They know before everybody else knows that it's a guarantee. It's like time traveling. Like if I could go back and now that I know Strickland beat Cumshot, like I could have made a lot of money if I bet that,
mhm.
But like that'd be
Yeah,
like me
right.
knowing that he was gonna throw the fight ahead of time.
I mean, what'd you think
But
of that fight?
great. I liked seeing him
It was
get beat.
a pretty good fight.
He didn't even make weight, and he still beat him.
I like
And he had
oh, dude, that was crazy. It was
he had like a torn
185.
something in his shoulder.
Oh yeah, you had like a motorcycle accident or something, right?
Well, a long time ago, but I think then he re-injured his shoulder.
Mm.
It's like the shoulder he hurt in the accident. I think
That was
he
a pretty
said
good.
Tuesday.
That was a good
like
fight, though.
it was like a not a I don't think he needs like surgery, but like some kind of tear or issue. But yeah, good fight.
It's like knowing that like your UFC fighter has a injured knee going into it. Like these have been like I've seen bets on stuff like that where some guy's like injured going into it, so you like already know the other guy's gonna win. That's what these
Well, and he just got suspended by
prediction
the
markets feel like.
New Jersey Athletic Board or whatever because he didn't disclose. Like he's supposed to disclose that he has an injury, but why would you when you're about to go fight a guy? You're not going to tell him like, "Oh, don't hit me here in this spot." Or, like I don't blame him for not saying nothing, but like the rule is he is supposed to say something because if you and me want to bet on it, we have a right to know. Is your knee blown out? Like, like is your hand broken? I'd like to know before I put money on it. But I mean that's the only I mean I feel like it's one or the other. If you want them to regulate the market, I feel like you're asking to take the insider trading out of it, and then that kind of defeats the purpose of the news signaling of it. But I think there's an element of that makes sense, but it's worse than it's good because
regulating the deregulated market.
Well, I'm just thinking like the guy that did the Maduro thing, like whatever he was, he fueled the plane or something, or he's probably not going to have a good track record on bets going forward, even if they didn't arrest him. Like he knew that one thing, and that's it. But Trump,
right,
and the people like really close to Trump know everything. Like they know they can bet across all things. Like if you want that account that's going to signal everything, it's somebody like close to who's making decisions. But do you want an administration that's now got the incentive? Like, okay, now we got the news. We got this one account we can follow for news, but we've just incentivized the temporary caretaker that rules over our government to profit, and maybe they launch a war that they wouldn't otherwise because they can make money off of it in a way they couldn't before.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the sports, looking at it in the same way of sports betting, I think is actually just, I mean, I think that's the way to look at it. And the same way that, it's illegal for someone who's in the MLB to be betting on FanDuel, even if it's not their game. And we saw that with Shohei and all them. And it's like, I think that's simple enough where it's like, okay, if you're a government official, then it's illegal for you to use these apps or to use these gambling predictive markets. Same with if you have insider information. I think that's fair.
Like you should be banned from individual stock trading if you're a fucking person. Like that one's ridiculous.
That too. Yeah, if you're writing policy that's designed for the benefit of certain companies,
allow them to own indexes or whatever, right? Like, all right, if the goddamn S&P goes up 8% during your time in office, all right, fucking so be it. But like individual stocks where it's like, I hear this Taiwanese chip manufacturer is going to get a deal. and then
It's worse than that.
It's crazy. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
they
Well, I
all
mean, I
have
would
their little
actually go a step
committees
further.
they sit on. So like I follow on X, the Nancy Pelosi stock trader and Unusual Whales. They're good accounts. It feels like every other day he's posting another thing, like, so and so sits on the committee for whatever, national defense or something, and he just bought this obscure stock that they make some kind of weapon thing or something, and then like you find out a week later that they just awarded them $1 billion contract. Now he was sitting on like, he's not just in Congress. Like, the little committees decide, you know, who's allowed. Like, the government is the biggest employer in the country, and they can just decide whether or not you get to even do business in the country. I mean, Spirit just went under because they weren't allowed to merge with JetBlue. They might still be in business if the government didn't block their merger. But I mean, they literally write the deals, make the contracts with them, but they're buying the stock before they do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's not just insider
yeah, it's
information. Like,
ridiculous.
they're completely manipulating the market.
I mean, if they're buying the stock before writing the policy, or like before it's public knowledge that the policy is being written, they're paying themselves. They're basically paying themselves with government money, because if I buy the stock, then I'm a partial owner of the company, and then I write myself, the company that I am now a partial owner of, then I write myself policy to give my interests an advantage. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would almost go a step further on the
that's
S&P.
insane. That is corruption at its core, and that is standard operating procedure for our government.
Yeah, that's how they make money, because they don't even get paid that. I mean, most of them don't get paid very much in salary. The highest paid salary is the president, and it's $400,000, which is a lot. But they're walking out with hundreds of millions. So how many years does that take over $400,000 salary? Or if you're in Congress, at $150,000, $200,000 salary, how many years of service does it take to walk out with $80 million? I could work that job for 200 years and still be, so that's how they make all their money. But when it comes to the S&P, I would almost go a step further, and I'd say it should be mandated that Congress gets paid in shares of the S&P. I think that'd be a great policy if I was in charge.
Well, I don't think this S&P is indicative of, like, the stock market's been doing just fine right now, but I don't think the economy is doing very good. I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. Try to align their incentives to doing a good job. Like, it's all about incentives. Right now, there's no incentive to not steal money. I mean, they have a policy where they have to disclose within, I think, 30 days when they buy a stock. Every once in a while, they'll forget to disclose it, and it's like $100 fine. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
It's like $100 at the most. The one lady made millions of dollars, and she paid like $100 fine because she didn't disclose that she made it. And even that, like, it's so, some of them are so obvious that it's insider information.
Any law that is a fine is not actually against the law. It's just a cost of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I forget who it was, but there was one that they posted recently. Somebody bought a stock. It was such an obscure stock that no congressperson's ever bought the stock. And it's like, it was the same deal. They were on a committee that oversaw that industry, and then it skyrocketed.
It wasn't like, sometimes it's like, just like
NVIDIA, like they all own NVIDIA, right? Like, okay, NVIDIA did well, like, it's a big but like some no-name company no one's ever heard of.
It's literally the AMC thing. It's like, AMC, we just like the stock. Like, oh, we're not market manipulating. Like, I just like the stock, right? Have you guys seen the one Warren Buffett one? And he's like, I know how we'd be able to pass a balanced budget immediately. It's like, if any sitting like Congress members like pass a budget with like a imbalance, like they're immediately fired within the next like cycle or whatever.
Yeah,
like, they're no longer eligible for re-election.
Yeah,
that's kind of, I was thinking about that when I was
a lot of different ways to do it. Just
grandfather
them in
too. Something
they let them do it for the rest of their terms, and just the next guys. Like, I think England just passed a law that bans smoking for people born after a certain year. I
Yeah,
forget what the
Really?
that is crazy.
That's
Like
kind of insane.
I forget what
it
the year is, but whatever.
it's
Say
something.
it's 2000 or something. Like,
Yeah, it's
you
something
were
like
born the year before, you could smoke the rest of your life. You're born the year after, you're not allowed to smoke ever.
I think it's like 2008 or
That's crazy.
something. Like 18-year-olds or whatever. If you're like 18 or younger, you like won't be allowed to buy cigarettes.
I think somebody should
That's
put
kind of,
that kind
I
of vote
mean,
up in Congress and make. I mean, they'd vote against it, I'm sure, but like, take that. They're not going to vote against themselves, but like, you're grandfathered in. You're not. You're going to get to keep stealing as much as
yeah.
you want.
Oh, anyone
That's
But
after. Oh, I see what
we're
you're
going to
saying.
pass a law that
that's a
says
great idea.
any new congressperson cannot, you know, trade
That's a great
individual
idea because,
stocks or whatever,
w-
and
well,
see who
because
votes against
yeah,
that.
that's
I mean, it just it to me it makes if you're a politician, you're just trying to win the next election. Maybe you vote for that because then you could say, "Hey, look, I voted. There's a big issue. Everybody wants this stopped. I voted to stop it. I mean, I don't do it either, but that's how the bill was written. I get to be grandfathered in, but I voted it out. It'll stop at some point. It
I mean,
it should be a
or
win for
or just
politicians.
goddamn term limits, right? Like
Yeah,
like two or three
grandfather
terms,
those in too. Yeah.
2 or 3 terms or whatever, right? Like
well,
should
the
you really
Senate,
be in Congress for like
senators,
30 years?
40, 50 years. Yeah.
Is this where we are, where the people who are supposed to be the leaders, the people who are in charge, who have access to the power structures, their incentive is basically to just steal as much as they can, squeeze as
Yes.
much out of this dying system as they can before it all goes to shit, and leave everyone else behind. Meanwhile, it's like, okay, dude, but do you not give a shit about
Lindsey Graham
about
don't.
the
That's why he
future at
wants to
all?
bomb everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's crazy that's where we're at, and that hardly anyone. I mean, you would think there'd be some scumbags in there, there's some corruption, and then you've also got the people who actually care about the future. But it's like, no, it's like 99% the scumbags and the corruption, and then you've got like Thomas Massey, who he's probably a scumbag too, I don't know, but he at least seems to be
Nah, I
like
think he
pushing
might
for the
be the
right.
only good one.
Yeah, he seems to be legit. And maybe a couple others, but it's like such a small percentage that it's like who
I think it's just
like
him.
who's voting for these people? Why is anyone still voting for these people? They're
You
taking
don't have
advantage of people
you
who
don't
don't realize.
you
I
don't
guess,
realistically have a choice. I was thinking about this one the other day. The one power we might have right now is the power of the write-in vote. Because when you're given a choice between corporate stooge A and corporate stooge B, whose entire incentive is literally just to steal as much as they possibly can while they're in power, like you said, Richie, that is what their incentive structure is in this job.
That's
It's
the
not
problem
to
with democracy. Yeah.
yeah, it's not to do anything better for us, but I'm thinking like social media movements of like write-in votes where it's like, let's just vote in some other fucking random person that is not completely like it's the paradox of choice between two people who don't matter. It doesn't matter which one you choose, they're not voting for you.
I think we
Yeah,
need a
no, yeah.
revolution. I don't think there's ever been a revolution that's been kicked off by something being written on a piece of paper. I mean,
Very
they're not
true,
going to
very
ever give up
true.
power. I mean, government just constantly accumulates more and more power to protect itself, to preserve itself. I mean, they just passed a law 2027. All of our cars are going to have a government kill switch in them.
Yeah.
And AI software that has facial recognition software. It's going to look at our face and track to see if we're competent enough to drive.
If you're too
not, the government
intoxicated enough, if you are,
well, that's how they're selling it. Yeah.
Well, no, here's the
It's
thing.
to stop drunk drivers, but
me and Richie actually went into this one pretty deep. It comes down what's the ultimate question comes down to? It's like the safety versus like freedom.
Safety versus liberty. Yeah. Safety versus freedom.
So it's like how much, oversight is there needed? Like, dude, even like drowsiness. Oh, if you're too tired, your vehicle like won't work and you won't be allowed to go where you need to go. It is you can just literally feel like the growing like surveillance state that we are moving towards.
It happens slowly over time.
Have you heard of Flock? Have you guys heard of Flock?
No.
Yeah, but I forget what that is. I have heard of that though.
Dude, so like Flock cameras a lot of the cameras that you see on like street lights and shit like that, those aren't like red light cameras. They're these like flock cameras. And what flock is doing is they're like mixing all these like live streams of things, so they have like constant like GPS tracking on like every car basically. So you drive
Oh yeah,
past it
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
fed
I've seen
into like
that.
the algorithm, so they like monitor your movements at all times.
Out the data centers to it's just they're collecting everything. They just need to finish the the surveillance state. They need enough data centers to house all the data they're collecting on us constantly, and AI that can process it quickly and make decisions and shit and be autonomous. I mean, Israel used AI to identify targets and launch drones on them. There was no human in the loop. The Lavender program is a fully autonomous AI killing machine they used in Gaza.
Yeah.
The data
I mean,
center, let me hop on the data centers real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, good.
One thing to before we go into like
I'm
AI
listening,
mass
but
surveillance, it sounds like have you seen the shit on the data centers? Like people going into small town councils about whether they should build an AI data center. And there's so many people that show up and protest it because they don't want that shit built by them. And like
Utah?
yeah, the one in Utah, exactly. And they fucking
No.
they had to like kick everyone out. Then they did it virtually, and then they passed it unanimously virtually. If there was
it was
any
funny.
sign that democracy, like we don't even have
It's
democracy,
been
at
subverted,
this
yeah.
point.
No, we have all the worst elements of it. Let me just say real quick. I listened to Tucker just had Kevin O'Leary on talking about the
Oh yeah, I just listened
data
to that
centers.
today too. Yeah,
He
yeah.
was like, Kevin O'Leary was like, well, people want it. This is how capitalism works. I can just go to another state if I don't get welfare to build it because he's stealing money from taxpayers. And he's like, well, the taxpayers showed up. They didn't want it. And he's like, no, they voted for it. He's like, really? They voted for it? He's like, oh, yeah, 3-0. He's like, oh,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
three council, there was 3 council people. And he like laughed in his face. He's like, oh yeah, like Amazon and you and Google can't like twist the arm of 3 council people, give them a little like that's not how this is supposed to
Is
work.
Kevin O'Leary the worst?
I
Mm.
like him. I think he's good, and the reason why I'll push a little bit back on that, although I do agree that that's just ridiculous.
Pretty
But
bad.
I guess I'll pose it as a question: why is it that all of these people are protesting data centers? Because the one thing that Kevin O'Leary is right about, or at least maybe I'm missing something, but one thing he's right about is that this is actually very beneficial for the people. They don't realize that because they've been fooled into believing that this is like somehow oppressing them, and so they're protesting against it. I am not a fan of telling people what they want. If they say they don't want it, then you got to take them at their word for it. But I can't imagine why they logically wouldn't want it.
I mean, I've seen it raises your electricity bill. You're funding it with your tax dollars, and
Well, that's the part that I would be strongly against. But
complaints
why would the
about
taxpayer pay for that? That's ridiculous. It's private
complaints
company.
about
Yeah.
fucking
Creates jobs. That's what Kevin O'Leary said. Creates
that
jobs.
doesn't create jobs.
It creates
Well-
jobs and it creates tax revenue. I mean, that's the thing is like I mean, logic. I'm sure it's corrupted, but logically, it shouldn't actually raise your taxes. It should heavily decrease your taxes because or at the very least, give your local governments more tax money to work with that's coming not from your pocket because it's more. I mean, the amount of money
Quid pro
flooding in
quo
is
between
big.
both of them. They both the government and the corporations are working together to fuck over us. We get
Right,
fucked
I mean,
every which
I agree
way.
that
We
that's
get
the
fucked on
problem.
the front end. We have to pay. Like we don't have a choice. They steal that money from us to fund it. So it's corporate welfare. It's taking money from a poor population and giving it to the good. Kevin O'Leary don't need extra money. Neither does Google or Amazon. To the extent that they make good products that I want to buy or pay for their service, great. I hope they make $1 billion from that. They shouldn't be getting any fucking welfare. They take the welfare And then the government is like, oh yeah, I'll steal money from the people now because that'll give me it'll create jobs and that'll give me a larger pool of people to steal from going forward.
Yes,
It's
exactly right. That's what it is. But I mean, the
like,
idea that like you've got a data center going into your your area, maybe your small town. I can see why you might not want to see your hometown change or something. I kind of I'll come back a little bit on saying I have no idea why these people would ever protest. Sure, there are some reasons. There are also like, I mean, I would vote in favor of putting an AI data center in my town. I think I would. Some people might disagree, but I think the problem here is that why am I forced to pay for it if I disagree? Why is the taxpayer paying for it? Why if I want it in my town so bad, why can't I just take my own money and invest it and maybe get a stock or something in the company? That's the free market. That's a much better way to do it rather than just forcing a taxpayer against their will to pay for something they don't even want.
well, I think it's all overcomplicated. These meetings and stuff, you know, it, it ain't their land. The land that Kevin O'Leary is buying or whatever in Utah, it's probably vacant desert land that no one's living on. I don't own it, so even if I live in Utah, I don't feel like I have any right to decide what happens on land that I don't own. So he should be able to
Agreed.
do
Yeah.
whatever the hell he wants within the law on that land with his own money.
Exactly.
That's it. I mean, I don't think needs to be any more complicated than that. I mean, these people that complain like, "Oh, my hometown changed because this new thing came in or whatever." You don't own the town. You own your plot. If are lucky enough to own a little plot, what happens around that? It's really none of your business. I mean, it's unfortunate if you bought that land hoping that the things you don't own would be a certain way, but you don't own them, so you don't have any authority over it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. 100%. Yeah, agreed.
I mean,
I mean, I think
I feel like
the
people
big
are too
qualm is just
entitled
it's
to
like
this idea, like I have a say in what you shouldn't really.
Lou, do you
mhm.
know why people are protesting so much? I'm trying to
The
think.
data
There's also
centers,
there's something about like, well, one, I had heard that it makes their electricity bill higher
it has
because
in
they're sucking
Virginia.
up all the energy. So
Yeah,
like that one's an interesting one. Also like just like weird like humming and shit. Like it just causes it's like a nuisance in
well,
like
see,
the
now
community.
that's a little different too. Like what the argument I was just making, like you know,
Yeah, right.
if you're doing something on your land that is reaching my land, and like just sound like I don't think I should have to put up with like a rock band next door to my house playing constantly because it is,
Mhm.
the sound is on my land. So I think that's a
Yeah.
legitimate argument. I don't think they necessarily should be right next to houses. I don't see why they should be.
I don't
But
think
there's
that
water issues and energy. Yeah,
I don't think that the sound. I agree that is at some point it is somewhat intrusion. I can't blast an air horn at my neighbor all day because I live on this side of the line. But the electricity one, that one I don't know that how true that is.
That's
There
what
might be
I
certain
think.
examples,
it
I
but
don't
I
know.
think like the
depends. Yeah,
idea that I'm a lot of these data centers now, well, for one, it's in their own interest to do so, but I think
doing
those
their own
governments are
power.
going to start mandating it that they have to provide their own power, and it actually is going to probably bring your electricity bill down because any excess power they generate, they can pump right back to the grid
That's the
and
best
have just
thing
another
about the
source
data
of.
centers is if we need more power. There's nothing wrong. More
Mhm.
power means that power goes down, like cost of power goes down. I mean, we should be doing everything we can to produce as much power as possible.
Yeah,
And,
and I mean, I will say, full disclosure, I am recognizing my own bias here because for one, I have some investments in some data center companies, but I didn't get them from insider trading. I actually had to figure shit out.
doing it
But
the fair way.
I
That's
mean,
cool.
and also I mean, I also like my entire job depends on the construction of more data centers because that's what I do for a living. So,
You
but I
build
mean,
data centers?
there's pros too.
Yeah.
Trust me.
All right.
I mean, yeah,
Well,
I
hey,
mean, not
I
I
love
don't physically
AI.
build them, but
I'm not totally against them by any means. Um,
Wait, that's what your company makes, Richie? That's what your bids are
so
on?
yeah, but they're not the data center. They're not the big like Kevin O'Leary data centers we're talking about. We're building I shouldn't actually. I don't want to get too into what our
Yeah,
company's doing, but they're like mini
you do it
data centers
smaller
for government
ones.
facilities.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're smaller ones for government facilities.
interesting.
Oh, you work for the government.
Yeah, a government contractor.
Sucking
And
off the teat of the sweet, sweet taxpayer nipple.
yep, exactly.
All right. Well, you could. It's funny because we sound like we agree on a lot of stuff, but like you said, it's bias, So like now I would be like, see, you guys all get it. We got to roll back government, right? That's the common through line of all these issues. But then you work for government.
No, but I mean,
All right,
I'm
all right,
the
Lou.
biggest. I would agree with you 100% that we got to roll back government. I mean, there's the government involvement. So here's one just quick kind of little point here, which that I've kind of seen firsthand, and there's certain government contracts that are issued through like hard bid purposes where it's like, okay, in construction, if the government wants to build, say, something simple like some type of like like a VA hospital, they want to build like some inpatient dorm
Right.
rooms or something. Well, then that contract is given based on a bidding process the same way there would be in the private market, where there's official rules on like it's the government, the single person who's going to sign the contract, that individual has no say. It's already built into the protocol of like whoever submits the lowest price gets contracted to do this job. That's a good way to do it.
Is that
When it's more
specifically with VA dorms? Because I know that's not the case with most government
Well,
contracts.
so that's where I'm getting to. So it's not. I mean, it is specifically for the VA. When it comes to simple projects, now the VAs are also building on-site data centers, and those are considered more complex projects. And this is still not bad though. What those require, there's also a set criteria. It's not like an individual person's decision, but there's a set criteria that has a lot to do with past performance. You have to also not only do you have to submit a low price, but you have to show proof that you actually know how to build it because it's considered more complex. That I think is fair enough too, even though I liked all the low bids better. The problem though, here's where it gets real bad, and I think this is probably what you're referring to. The Department of Defense, I don't know if it's a majority, but a good chunk of their contracts are on a cost plus basis, meaning there is no criteria. We pick one of our favorite of the five defense the five defense companies that make up the United States Defense Cartel. We pick whichever one we feel like, and then we pay them out of the government budget whatever they tell us the cost is, plus a 10% profit or whatever it is. And so what do these companies do then? Well, like, oh, okay, well,
They
yeah, it
get to
turns
pick,
out
yeah.
this now the companies are incentivized to make it cost more, and that's a massive problem, and it seems like so ridiculous. And I know that that's probably many government departments do it that way. Wasteful and dumb, I think.
Well, it's incentives. You're spending other people's
Exactly.
money, and you don't have an incentive to, you're not going to run out of money. You're not going to go out of business. You're probably not going to be office long enough for the fallout of it. That's why that's why we're 40 trillion in debt. It's the next guy's problem. But
Exactly,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I can't get into the specifics of how each department of the government works, but I know in general, it's a very different process than what me as an entrepreneur have to deal with in the free market, where I have to compete with other people. And you know I mean, if I
Right.
somebody wants me to you know install cabinets in their house, I mean, they're gonna call a bunch of other people. I mean, maybe they pick me even if I'm a higher price because I got a reputation, like you're saying, reputation and whatnot. But like, there's really no room for corruption or insider shit. I mean, Christy Noem, I think one of the reasons she got fired was she uh she got a big budget, hundreds of millions of dollars to run commercials for Homeland Security, and she like because she's a political actor and she's trying to move up to the next rank, and she's showing herself riding like on a horse, like prominently
Hmm.
featured herself, and it was a no bid contract with somebody she had a connection with that I forget the details, but they did other videos for her. It was a ridiculous price that she gave them, like just stole the money and just funneled it through some
I did
whatever
see that
company you
one
call it,
actually.
that makes videos. I mean, that's how government operates. I mean, that's why government is inefficient because
Lou, what do you think the government should pay for / do?
there
Like, what
shouldn't
are?
be a government.
Oh yeah, just right,
Shouldn't
just
be a
none
government.
whatsoever.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
What about? We talked about this last time. The foreign invasion threat.
Well, we have the best geography we could possibly have. I mean,
Sure.
foreign invasion from Mexico and Canada isn't much of a threat. We're the most well-armed
It would be if we didn't
country.
have a government, though.
It wouldn't be. We're more armed. The
Well,
individual
Mexican
citizens in this
cartels.
country are better armed than the
Like,
militaries of Canada and Mexico. And we'd be better armed if the government wasn't restricting our rights to bear arms. I mean, I don't see why I shouldn't be allowed to buy an F-350 fighter jet if I had the money for it.
yeah,
I mean,
no,
people argue
I
about like
mean,
what kind of like assault rifle I can have. Like, why can't I buy a Predator drone?
I forget that the first rule of anarchy is you don't get to do violence.
Well, you're not. The incentives are against committing violence. I mean, if you don't have government, like government can commit violence because we're sitting here talking about, well, what can we do to stop them? We'll write something on a slip of paper and put it in a ballot box. We'll complain about it on a podcast. If I commit violence against you two, 2-on-1, like, there's more people that feel the way I do and just want to live in peace, not commit violence, not launch wars of aggression against people on the other side of the world, that will, do what needs to be done. I mean, not everybody's, a fighter, whatnot. I mean, I'm never going to go join the army and fight for government, but I mean, if somebody invaded where I live, China invaded Florida, I'm going to arm up as best as I can and kill the motherfuckers.
so
You
what
know?
if, I guess how would you, and we might have already kind
Our
of
rights
touched on this a little
protection
bit.
agencies protect us.
Yeah. Yeah, we had this conversation. I do want to kind of pick
Yeah.
back up on it because we kind of went down some other paths. But going back, if anyone who's watching didn't see the last episode, we talked a lot about the rights enforcement agencies and how basically, Lou, your kind of concept is that there is no real need for government because the private sector can handle everything that the government does, which I do
Yes.
agree with. But my question then would be, what is the difference between between a government and a company that has earned a monopoly in
Companies operate in a
certain
free
critical
market.
sectors?
They can go out of business. You can choose whether or not to do business with them.
Well,
know.
but if there is no government at all, say, and it's like anything goes, and it's actually private companies that provide our protection, and protect our rights. Well, then
You should
what is
be the
to
first person doing that.
well, I
First
mean,
and
if
foremost, you should
but
protect yourself. But go ahead.
yeah, but what if
Sorry.
someone what if what someone who it has say I I've got a small family, I didn't have a big system, and so now I'm just a sitting duck waiting for these like large
You
bands
need a tribe.
of
Yeah.
tribe, right? And so but what is there really a difference between, in this context, the company that becomes the most powerful tribe, is that not now the government?
Well, how you're saying the rights enforcement agency that becomes the best rights enforcement agency?
Yeah.
How are they distinctly different than a government?
Right. If your rights enforcement, say me and you have different rights enforcement agencies, and we have some type of conflict that there is no common ground, and it gets to an escalating level where there's no government to tell us what we can and can't do, and so my rights enforcement agency is in some type of battle with your rights enforcement agency over some large enough amount of resources, and they resort to, it escalates to physical battle, and your rights enforcement agency is much more equipped. They have better technology, they have better intel than mine, and so
Physical
they beat the
battle.
shit out of mine.
What?
And they beat the hell out of mine, and now I have no choice but to either kind of join theirs or try
You
to find
talking about
another
like
one who
war?
they
Like
also
it devolves into war between rights
yeah
enforcement agencies? How would
it
that
would
happen?
well, yeah, okay, that's a question then. Would it not devolve into war if if there is no one to, like, who, if the
I
rights
don't know
enforcement
any.
agencies are at odds,
I don't know any
then
war that's
what else
ever
would happen?
started without government.
But all wars have started without government in some sense. All okay. How about the American Revolution? I mean, we didn't technically have a government yet.
We formed
We
a
had
government.
a
Yeah, we formed a government.
yeah, but what is the difference between that government we formed and a rights enforcement agency? Because was
Rights
that not just a
enforcement
rights
agency is a
enforcement?
company in the free market. You can choose whether or not to do business with them. They don't steal money from people. All the money they accumulate is through um, willing clients. You have to be willing to give them money. If they do a bad job, you can hold them accountable. You could choose a different rights enforcement agency at any point.
But how? What if your rights enforcement agency says no? You can't. If you leave, we're going to kill you.
Can't
They
do
wouldn't be a
that.
very good rights enforcement agency.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter
You're the
because
most
it'd be really
powerful.
good ones that put them in their place.
No,
The,
because
the
they
law
don't
of
have as good technology.
Because there's
They don't have
other
as good of
ones you can
technology.
go to that won't kill you. I don't know.
Yeah, but what? Okay, but then that's the same thing as saying, why can't we just start our own government right now? And then we don't think that our government's doing a
well,
good job, so
it
why don't we
comes
just
down
go
to
and take over? Like,
the
they won't let
idea
us. That's the problem.
of voluntary exchange. It's built off of that. So do you not agree with the principle that everything, like that you're a free person and that you have the liberty to do whatever you want as long as you're not harming other people?
No, I 100% agree. That's exactly what I believe, and I'm not disagreeing that that the idea is like I think that the idea of of no government and having private sector rights enforcement agencies that you can voluntarily choose to join, and it's based on like you know you got to provide the best service to the people. Whoever does the best job gets the most benefit, just like the private sector. Exactly, I 100% agree that that is what is ideal. I would love that, but I'm just saying like on a practicality sense, of there is no there still exists a problem that I guess my thought is that eventually it does evolve into
It,
a
it's the problem of
government.
violence. It's the problem of violence, right? Because we started going into this, I'm like, I forgot that rule number one is you don't do violence, right? And
Non-aggression principle.
the
Yeah.
non-aggression principle, right? And the issue that me and you had gotten back to over text, Richie, was like, well, what happens when someone does kill someone? Because there are violent people, as we
It's gonna
know,
happen.
right? Then we talked about rights protection agencies, shit like that. The question then becomes like how, from what we talked about earlier, the people in power right now, while maybe not doing physical violence, at least they themselves, while they do vote for war, which is the worst form of physical violence you can
It's the
do.
worst thing, yeah.
Right, our government is perpetuating violence right now. Like the question me and Richie are kind of trying to ask is like, well, why wouldn't like rights protection agencies, whatever the powerful one becomes, then perpetrate some sort of
Exactly.
violence, essentially.
Yeah, but I feel
Their
like
incentive structure would be identical to the incentive structure the government
It's
currently has
not.
that causes them to do what they do.
I think you guys are making a big leap. So you have to walk me through how there is a distinct, like, we can agree on the differences, right? A rights enforcement agency is a private company that you could choose whether or not to do business with. We agree. They do a bad job. You can, like, it's very easy to get rid of them. Government is very difficult to get rid of. It takes
Yes.
violent revolution to get rid of government.
Yes.
So that's a very distinct difference.
Yes.
And that is a different incentive structure for them.
Well, can I quick question
I just
on
want to
that?
put it back to you guys.
Oh.
Is you got to explain to me how that incentive structure leads to this worst case scenario you're talking about, because I think I'm talking about like a fundamental way of setting up the incentives to prevent that from happening.
So yes, okay, we're on the same page here. I guess, does the rights enforcement agency have rules what it can and can't do to you as its
Well,
as its voluntary? customer? What is to
Well,
stop the
there
rights
is no,
enforcement
to your
agency
point,
from violating?
there's no global government or police force that puts rules down on them. So it's
Right.
whatever they decide, and
So do
whatever
we think
they're
that?
going to go with whatever the market tells them. It's going to be it's a decentralized market driven approach because if I start a rights enforcement agency and I say, if anybody doesn't wear blue on Tuesdays, like you can, beat them up. Like I don't know how many people I'm going to get to like hire me. It's kind of a ridiculous thing. Or like, you know,
But what if the
my rights
market,
enforcement
which
agency,
would,
if I tell you we're going to go to war with these Arabs in the other side of the world, like, I can draft all your, one son from every family. Like, if you think of like what government puts us under, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, they could do a draft and send us to go fight people on the other side of the fucking world. So,
yeah,
if that was a rights enforcement agency, how many people would sign up for that?
but it's what I'm saying is the government is late stage rights enforcement agency because what if the market told them, well, which it probably would, which is like, hey, you've got a lot of other rights enforcement agencies that are in your same area. You need to lock down like a area of land where you have only your rights enforcement agency and no others. So that way we're guaranteed to have an income for
They're
everyone who lives in that
incentivized to
area.
cooperate with each other like an insurance company does.
I mean, yes, okay, perfect example. The insurance companies have become oligarch cartels that totally exploit the people even more so than government does. The health insurance
Now,
companies take more of our money than the government.
well, they're only because they have government power. Health insurance is a really corrupt industry, but it's
Yes.
Very
facilitated
true,
through
very
government.
true. Very true, but what is to stop the government, or I mean, what is to stop the rights enforcement agency from? I mean, if the idea
The
is that
people,
they're,
we stop
I
them.
mean,
If they get out of control, the people stop them.
You take your business elsewhere.
that's the
Well,
thing is,
would you agree that it would be
can we take?
easier
Why don't we?
if we have an out of control government versus an out of control rights enforcement agency? Which one's easier to control, or
I
is it no
disagree with the
different?
premise because I think they're the same thing. I think they're the same thing because
But wait,
the
you do
government.
agree that one is the government holds a monopoly on violence. They steal money from me at the threat of violence. They'll lock me in a cage if I don't pay them. That is very distinctly different than how a company operates. I mean, there's companies I don't like and I
It's
won't do
just
business with.
later. It's just
But
later. The rights
how
enforcement
does it
agency
get
is
to
just an
that?
early
How does
stage
the
government.
rights enforcement agency get to where I have no choice? They
That's
steal money from me. They own my land. They own my body. They could send me off to war. That's a big jump. I'm not seeing
It is a
the
big
connecting
jump.
dot from
I guess.
where I'm
Okay. I
at
mean,
to
fair
that.
question. It's just it just becomes a matter of of power structures. I mean, there exists choke points in power that whoever can capitalize on can guarantee from a market incentive that, I mean, if you look at the government also operates on market incentives too, just not with us. We are not domestically, but on a global stage, yes, the United States is operating on a market incentive because they're trying to out innovate and take more resources and take more land and have more influence than all of the other countries' governments. And, like if you look at the United States government, I mean, look what happened. We had a bunch of different governments all over the world, all who had their own kind of sectors of land. And these are pretty much equivalents to rights enforcement agencies. I mean, the United States government
How?
was protecting my rights because
They
on paper
take your
was.
rights away from you. They don't protect your rights. Government
But
doesn't protect rights.
if the United States government were to go down, why would another country not just come in and say, hey, we're going to protect your rights now as long as you do what we need you to do? And it would probably be
That's
pretty
the
similar to
history.
what the United States does.
Well, if our government fell, would another government want to take it over? Yeah,
Yes.
of course.
Right, right. But I'm saying is like just on a smaller scale. I mean, if everyone in my neighborhood uses this one rights enforcement agency because we all like this one, and in the next neighborhood everyone uses that rights enforcement agency because they all like that one, and now both of these rights enforcement agencies need to keep increasing their profits in order to keep increasing their market cap. Well, then eventually there's going to become a point where they have to go try to take just in all markets The objective is to try to take more share of that market, and that's what would happen, and it would be tribal warfare,
I
and
think
then
I
eventually there
get a
would be a winner.
fundamental difference between us. So let me just ask both of you. In a scenario where there is no, well, do you think without government that there, with free market capitalism just let loose, that there would be a winner? Like it would be a game of Monopoly where somebody eventually has it all.
Yes, that is the
Probably.
assumption I'm operating on.
Yeah.
Okay, I disagree. So my premise is that the bigger you get, you can have a monopoly for a while, but eventually, without government, you can't hold a monopoly. If you look at American history, government, who controls government? We don't control government. Government is operated by the oligarchs, the people who can afford to pay off politicians. Those
Yes.
are corporations.
Those are
So-
investors in the private company that became the government.
Investors in the private company that became government.
The oligarchs that control the government are simply the investors in the rights enforcement agency that succeeded,
Okay,
and
well,
now
wait,
they're going to do
let's
everything they
forget
can.
the rights enforcement agency for a second. The government is controlled by corporations. The data
Yeah.
centers we were talking about are using welfare, money stolen from us, to build corporate projects. And they say, oh, we're going to give you jobs. Well, they're going to make a profit off those jobs. They're going to make money off that. So why you think government is your ally, and it's restraining these corporations from getting bigger? The corporations disagree. If you just look at how corporations operate, if you were right, corporations would be backing Thomas Massey. They would be all over him. They wouldn't be giving money to the other guy. They'd be giving money to Thomas Massey and people like me to pull back government so they can take over everything. But they use government. They use government to keep their control.
I don't disagree.
If it wasn't government,
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at
but
all.
if
that
there wasn't
it is-
government, the bigger you get, the harder it is to be efficient. Like, it's just a natural law of corporations. You know, Google, they've been around for a long time. They're maybe the biggest company in the world right now. I jockey back and forth, but you know, they're not winning the AI race. You know, once you get to a certain point, you switch from like the innovator
Innovation.
startup
Yeah.
thing to
Yeah,
like,
it's-
yeah,
I
just
was
kind
gonna
of
say,
minimizing and nickel and diming everything and hanging on, you know, and then you get all these people that come in that didn't start it that are just like,
Yeah,
we
that's true. That's
we
true.
talked about
well,
this
and then
for
that's
sure
how the
because
monopoly crumble. Eventually, somebody
Yeah.
comes in, that's lean, motivated, entrepreneur, smarter, and they take part of that market share.
But what if Google could
Government-
just
I
shoot
was,
them?
I was
them
gonna
from
say
that.
I was gonna say like your idea of like how that works, that is kind of similar to like the rise and fall of empires and shit too. It's like, all right, so like you start off and you're at the bottom,
I'm an empire.
and then you know you have some like really good innovative period, then you reach your apogee of power, you try to hold on to that as long as you can, but eventually you become too big, too disorganized, you don't have the founders' principles and mentality, you've gone from innovation and hard working and stick to itiveness to now like the second, third generation kids who shouldn't be running things are running things from nepotism and shit like that. And then you start the decline when someone else is actually
That happens with governments, that happens
innovating in
with
your stead.
corporations. Corporations just infected the government, and they're going to bring us down with them. We're in the decline at this point in this country,
Yes.
for sure.
Agreed. And I don't mean to be like I don't mean to like just get into the semantics. I genuine question because I feel like we are getting closer to like seeing where the gap is here. You said something along the lines of the only reason that they would turn around and start taking our rights and start oppressing us rather than protecting our rights is with government. Is because of government. And so right there, my question is like, okay, fundamentally, or like what mechanism? I guess how would you define government then in that sense? Like, what mechanism is the difference between a very, very powerful rights enforcement agency or private company that has, you know, grown to the level of like something like a Facebook or Google, say? What is really the difference between them and government? Because I almost think that one can't exist without the
Voluntarism.
other. They're almost a yes, but it's not okay. But the only reason, like you said, the problem, you know, if you get to that size, is that someone's going to out innovate you. They're going to be able to move quicker than you can. But if you are that size and there is no the reason that these smaller companies can innovate quicker and disrupt these markets is because the the government protects their right to do so. I mean, that is true. And believe me, I'm not a government guy, but that is what they do.
You are. You
They
work for the
protect
government. Hang on,
corporations.
let me get a beer.
I had to grab one too, actually. I got to grab one too. Quick break.
Quick pause. Where do we just leave it off at? That
He's
the
going to
government
explain to me how
protects
government
small
protects
business.
small business.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear this. I mean, it's just
Maybe?
like
No,
how?
the opposite.
Well, the opposite. Just look at what happened. The bigger government gets, the bigger corporations get. The bigger corporations benefit. I mean, we lived through a 2008 housing collapse where the big banks were too big to fail. Government bailed them out. CEOs gave themselves millions of dollars in bonuses. COVID, you know, put all these small business out of business. The big corporations took over a larger market share because they were the only ones government allowed to stay in business.
All right, Richie, how does
Yes,
government
agreed.
protect small business?
Well, I didn't say they protect small business. I said that they protect the rights of corporations, which they do. For example, an example would be, okay, so Tesla is a large business. There are other EV automated or autonomous vehicle companies that are smaller that are competing with Tesla. And Tesla is forced to, if they want to maintain their, you know, their leadership of that market, they have to continue to innovate and continue to win that market share. Otherwise, the other companies will out innovate them. If they were to become stagnant, other companies would out innovate them. Just the same thing as you said.
Elon's
But
never done
if there were
anything
no,
without government welfare. Tesla wouldn't be
but if
what
there
it
were
is
no,
without government.
if there were no government though, and okay, let's use a different example then. We'll use Jeff Bezos. He didn't. That's not a government subsidized company. He became
It
one of the
is.
biggest companies in the world too.
It is a government
Um,
subsidized company.
maybe
He pits just like Kevin O'Leary did. He pits states against each other to get taxpayer money to fund
I
his
know, but
warehouses.
the reason he's able to do that is because it was already a
Because there's a government.
massive. Amazon is a government.
No,
No. Okay, hang on. No, I thought I was asking you, like, is that what you're saying? No, okay, here's what I'm saying.
no. Amazon uses the government to take a larger market share than they would otherwise have in a free market.
Yes, agreed. But if there were no government, Amazon can take an entire, even more larger market share because
But I thought
they
we
could
just agreed that
simply,
they have a larger market share because of government.
they have a large, no, it's because of government overreach, because government is putting a thumb on the scale, which I'm 100% agreeing that's bad. But what I'm saying is that if there were no government at all, I think the only difference really here is that, you know, the idea that there's no government at all, what I'm saying is that there needs to be a government, and the government should not overreach beyond protecting human rights, and in this case, company rights, because companies are made of humans. What the government's doing is totally corrupt and ridiculous. I agree. But if there were no government at all, then Jeff Bezos would just do it himself, because the only reason why doesn't Jeff Bezos just send a bunch of bots or a bunch or his own army of workers to go inflict violence upon any competitors? He can't do that because the government has a monopoly on violence already. So the government won that. Violence is a private market. Violence is a resource. The ability to inflict power is a resource that exists naturally, and the companies that do the best at monopolizing that resource become governments. My question is, like, what is the difference between a government and a private company that becomes the monopoly on violence? Violence is a monopolizable market.
You're in a tough position because there's not really any, if you're going to use Tesla, and they're all like, we'd have to try to figure out what would Amazon actually be without government, because I think you did agree that they're more powerful because of government, but then at the same time they'd be more powerful
Because of government.
If they could,
Yeah,
because then they
go ahead.
inflict but how would they be able to inflict so much violence if they didn't have government to make them so big to begin with?
But the government really didn't make them big.
Then
You're also going. Well,
it's
you're
not a
also
free
going in a
market
paradox
that they
because.
did that.
But I thought the corporations control the government.
They do. He used government powers to take that market share beyond what he.
So
I
he
mean,
must have
I'm
already.
not saying that he wouldn't have had a successful company otherwise. I really don't know. I just know that some percentage of his market share, his growth, his company was thanks to government.
Yes, agreed. But
I
I guess
can't
what
put
I'm
a
saying
number
is.
on it. I can't say exactly how if he would even be in business without government.
Let me play moderator here real quick. Richie, the question to you was, how does the government protect small business? And you're saying
I never said it did.
I thought you did.
No, I said
that's where me and Lou both thought we were leaving off coming after that beer break.
Well, I mean, all right. I guess I'll give an answer then. It kind of does. It protects small businesses from being
from violence.
from
Right?
if a big business wants to get rid of a smaller competitor, they have to either out innovate them or acquire them maybe, or at least set some moats up so that set up some barriers to entry so that small companies can't do it. And now that's where I'll 100% agree with you, Lou, is that what these companies do is they use government as a tool to set up those barriers to entry, which isn't what government like. All I'm saying, the only difference between what my view on this is and yours is that I am a big fan of making government as small as possible, to the point that government's only job is to make sure that violence is not inflicted on people, individuals amongst each other. That's literally the only job the government should do.
We already tried that.
And I guess, I mean, the follow up on that is just that if we got rid of government altogether, there would just be eventually someone is going to have to stop people from doing that, or they will do it.
Yeah, it's see. I mean, I'm sure you guys went through. Well, I guess I'm not positive of this. Did you go through government school or private school?
Both actually.
We did both. We both
Yeah.
did both. We went to Catholic school K through 8, and then we went to public high schools, and then public college.
I'm a public school kid up until I was allowed to drop out. I wasn't allowed to drop out until I was 17. So I found a loophole and I dropped out basically when I was 15 because I got a doctor to write a note that I had depression. You had to have a medical excuse to go on to cyber school. So I just went to a doctor and told him like I was depressed, I want to kill myself, I'm getting bullied at school. True. But I can't go to school, I'll just kill myself. So he wrote me a note, and it was ninth grade, halfway through ninth grade. I got put on a cyber school, and I know I'm getting off topic, but I basically just logged in and played Xbox all day. But I wasn't allowed to drop out till I was 17. I did that as soon as I was allowed to.
When did you start working? You've described yourself as an entrepreneur. When did you start your first business?
20 or 21. My age. I mean, I'm 33 now.
Yeah.
I don't could have thought year maybe, but yeah. I was like 20. I tried an online hookah and vape store.
Nice.
I actually went to college on government grants, and I dropped out of college too. I'm not much for school, but I dropped out of college with the bright idea of starting a hookah, and it was when e-cigarettes were first kind of becoming a thing. So, but then government put me out of business because
I was gonna say if you'd stuck with that, that's a
government put me out of business. I was actually starting to do okay, but then government came in and regulated it and put all the small businesses out of business.
See, now that I agree, that's not government's place.
That's how the weed works in Illinois too. It's like, if you want to get your license to sell marijuana, you had to apply for the government grant. It's basically a bribe essentially. Is
Yep.
that basically
We're
what that
fighting
was?
that in Florida here. We just had a ballot initiative last election cycle. In Florida, they put a vote. If you can get 60% of the people to vote, it becomes a constitutional amendment. And it's really hard to get rid of that. It's not just a law. It's like in our Florida Constitution. They got it to like 56% to legalize weed. But I voted against it, and I partake, but the way they wrote the law was there was one company, Trulieve, that spent millions of dollars on an ad campaign and buying politicians to write this law. They wrote the law, and it said that only Trulieve was allowed to basically sell weed in Florida, and that they had, the pharma privilege. They had, what they do for vaccines. We're completely immune. You can never sue us for anything. Even if I got run off the road, like if there was a delivery truck of weed driving and it ran me off the road and it hurt me or something, I can't sue them. They're immune from all from any liability at all. I would be banned from growing my own. That was the law. That was the law. It didn't pass, thankfully. I would be banned from growing my own. No home grow.
No home grow?
No home grow at all. All through this one company. One company would have had a complete monopoly and complete legal protection from the government to operate in Florida. And we were 4% of the vote away from that. Because, they were hoping the majority of people just like, fuck, I want weed. Yeah, I'd vote for that.
I'm almost surprised that didn't still pass.
I am too. I'm delightfully surprised that did not pass.
Hey, the power.
They're going to come back around round 2. I'm sure we're not done. I'm sure it's going to pass in some regard. Like maybe they'll throw us a bone and give us like you're allowed to grow one plant or something.
Cheers to a round 1 democracy victory.
Yeah.
Chalking up for the boys back home.
Banning my ability to grow and and use it and all that. I mean, I refuse to pay for a medical. Like in Florida, you can buy a medical pass or whatever, and nobody ever gets denied. But it's like $150 or something, maybe 200, and it's like good for 7 months. And then all that does is allow me to go to the dispensary and buy from that one company that basically controls the whole market here. So
is it that because that's a very good example of something that's like against the thing about a company is that if I were to do something that was like against my company's interests, if I were to like make a deal with another company that was like actually it's going to be bad for my company, but this is my buddy and he promised me he'd take me out for a beer if I gave him the deal, so I did, and it lost my company millions of dollars, then I would be fired. In the government, it could it just simply be that like there's no good like firing process for the individuals that make up the government. There's no good accountability process for the individuals that make up the government, where in the private sector there is. Because otherwise
accountability. Yeah,
that's one of the issues is we talk about that they're able to spend your money and you don't have really a good enough response to what they do with it.
But like even if you were to say like, oh, the government's gonna act in its own, like if we look at the government as an entity and say like, okay, this is someone who's gonna act in its own interest and oppress the people to do so. It's like that's not even what's happening. It's acting against its own interest. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I mean, because it would be in the government's interest to formulate a law or a structure that would provide them with the most efficient production to maximize their production. Really,
they're growing. The government only gets bigger and more oppressive. So whatever they're doing, from their perspective, they're winning. They're getting their way. They got the kill switch pass this year. FISA just got renewed.
But they're losing. They're not winning.
How are they losing?
Because we have gone in the last 25 years from the global world hegemony, the most powerful country that's ever existed ever. It was going to be the American century, and
Richie's
literally
just upset about
the
short-sightedness of it all, I think.
Well, it's
A
not
quarter
just
from
our
yes,
government's controlled by
that's right.
other countries. We're not, as we should know by now. Israel, for example, has a lot of influence over our government. So the idea
Yes,
that like governments, like you can, I guess, what I think you're saying is like if you track it out, like with the debt and what like they're going to destroy themselves. But
yes, exactly
Yes,
right.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah. That's what he's
we're in a
saying. It's the short
democracy.
sightedness
They
of it
have a
all.
short period of time where they can loot, you know,
So the
the
incentive
wealth of the
structure
country.
is just as soon as
They're
you're
going
in
to be
power to
gone. We're
grift
going to be the
away
ones
for
holding
the
the
short
bag.
time. Yeah.
Yep,
hmm
we're going to be the ones
well,
holding the
I
bag. They're
mean,
going to steal as much as they can while they can, and we have interests that are thinking of the next government. You know, Israel is using us right now. We have a powerful military. They want to create greater Israel. They don't care. They actually have an incentive for us to be weak after this. The way Israel, I think, would like this to play out is, we fuck up Iran, and then we're so fucked up that we don't meddle in the Middle East anymore. Yeah, and people are just like, that's the final. No more Middle East wars for real this time. We did all 7 of Wesley Clark's countries. We overthrew them all for Israel. We're done. We're not doing it anymore. Israel's like, it's all
yeah,
ours
yeah,
now.
that
It's all
makes a
ours
lot of
now.
sense.
You know.
And then they don't need us anymore. Our
Then
job
they
is
don't need
done.
us anymore. They already did that
That makes sense.
with England. England helped found. If you it's a great podcast. Daryl Cooper does like a 7-part series on. It's called Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem. He talks you through the first idea of creating Israel, all the way up to he did it like a couple years before October 7th, so it doesn't touch on any of that stuff. But you get the just like if you want to know the history of this country and what they stand for and everything. I mean, he gives you a pretty unbiased, just facts kind of. It's interesting to listen to. But England, there was something called the Balfour Declaration. The guy that was ruling England at the time
Yeah.
wrote a letter to the Rothschilds and told them, like you could have Israel and we'll blah blah blah. But and then it goes to World War One. World War One, England wanted to fuck up Germany because they were worried about Germany kind of taking over their spot as the big country in England or in Europe. And they made all these promises to different groups to help fight the Germans. They promised the Jews that they would have we'll let you have Israel. We'll give you that region. He also promised the French could have that part, big chunk of the Middle East. And then he also got these Arab tribes that were in the area. See if I can remember the leader's name. But it was all Ottoman territory. But there's Arabs are different than Ottomans are like Turkish people. The Turks would kind of let them run things however they wanted as long as they paid their taxes. But the English told Faisal was his name. He was the leader of the Arabs. He said, "We'll give you all. You'll be an autonomous region. You can have the whole thing if you help us rebel against the Ottomans. To sow dissent within their ranks." So England basically promised that same piece of land to 3 different people, not giving a fuck. Just like we got to win this war right now. We'll deal with however that's going to happen in the end. But they ended up giving Israel, the Jews, their a little piece of their thing. They gave the French like Syria and Iran, some other part, not as much as they were promised. And then the Arabs, they just fucked out. They didn't give them nothing. But basically, up till like World War II, England was like us. England was backing the Jews there. They were helping them take over the land, kill the Arabs, everything. And then there was one moment where England didn't do what Israel wanted them to do. And it's a very interesting thing that never gets talked about in history. World War II, they're up until when Hitler wanted the Jews out of Germany. I know I'm going on a long rant now, but Hitler wanted the Jews out.
It was good. It was good.
Nobody wanted them. No one else wanted them. We wouldn't take them. Nobody would take them. This is my opinion of this. This isn't like, I don't have any evidence of this, but I think the Jews had a lot of control over Germany. And they didn't want to surrender it, you know? So we were like, no, we're not surrendering. We're not just giving it up to you, Hitler. But Hitler meant business, as we know. Like, so he tried the nice way. He said, we take them, like, and then he's like, all right, no one will take them. I'm gonna have to deal with it one way or the other. We know the rest, but there was a constant flow of Jews from Poland, Germany, all these regions to Israel to build that area up. Up until World War II was starting to get really heated, and Hitler was like really demanding, like, I want him out. England said, the whole time there were these diplomats from the Arabs and the Jews, like, kind of, lobbying the English because they were the power. They never did anything for the Arabs other than just lip service. They never got a fucking thing. Like, and the Arabs would come to them and be like, hey, they're raiding our villages. They're stealing our land. England never helped them. They and their big request is just stop sending them. Please, just give us a break. Don't send anymore, England finally agreed with the Arabs. Okay, we're not going to send anymore. Right when World War II was starting. England decided, that's it. Israel, we're not going to allow, or I think they actually put a cap. They didn't say nobody, but they put like a cap. I forget the number, but a small amount, they didn't have free immigration anymore. It's interesting when you look back and think, well, apparently 6 million of them died, might have been a good time for them to start. Like, at the time when they probably should have been leaving, England told them they couldn't, and we wouldn't take them either. But that pissed the Israelis off. And then they started terror attacking because there was English soldiers in that area. And, once the war was over, they were still occupying Israel. And the Jews, the Israelis, started doing what Hamas does. When you're the weaker party, trying to fight a big empire, you use terrorism. And you can look up, the biggest one was the King David Hotel bombing. They blew up this big hotel that was like a hub where a lot of the British soldiers were and stuff. But they were killing a couple of them every day, basically. It was like an onslaught. And eventually, Britain was weakened big time after World War II. So, and it was bad press. Like, everybody kind of felt bad for the Jews after World War II. What happened? And all this press is like, back in England, like, they were sick of war. They didn't want to see anymore. Like, they didn't understand why their soldiers were dying in Israel for some, whatever the hell, when they turned on them. So eventually, the terrorism worked, and the English were like, fine, we're done. We're evacuating. We're leaving. Whatever. The war ended in 1945. Israel became a legit country in, I think, 1948. We obviously took over as the global empire after that, and we started the UN, and they became a country because there was a UN vote, and there was an argument about like what their piece of land was going to be, and then they've kept expanding it since then. But it started right then and there. England backed off. They're like, we're done. We don't want anything to do with them anymore. And they immediately put their claws into us, and we took over. And they didn't have enough votes to make them a country and agree on the divide, how the land was going to be. And we basically used our power to all the small countries and told them, like, if you don't vote for this, whatever the threat needed to be. We're not going to do trade with you. We're going to invade you. We're going to, whatever it needed to be. And we, forced them all to vote for it. And they became a country, and they basically have used us since. And hopefully, this will be the period where, we wake up like England did. I mean, they're not, like, with England, they were directly killing us. I mean, it takes like to me, Israelis are directly killing us because we're fighting their war for them. So any American that dies in a war for Israel, in my opinion, was killed by Israel, essentially, But it's a little, it takes a second order thinking to get to that conclusion. For people that aren't really paying attention or know any of this history or anything, they can be pretty fooled into thinking, Iran's some crazy, you know, regime that wants to blow up the whole planet or whatever. I'm sure they're assholes, but, can't be as bad as Israel, if you ask
Bro,
me.
what's crazy is I remember one thing as a kid is like I think I remember asking my parents, it's like, oh, why did people blow up the World Trade Center? And it's like, oh, it's because they hate Americans and they hate our freedom.
Yeah, he told us why.
It's
Uh,
like that just cannot be
yeah.
true. But like that's like the propaganda you grow
Yep,
up with.
that's what I grew up with. They hate us for
Yeah,
our freedoms,
you heard
and
that
you
growing
see
up, didn't you?
videos
Right?
of them. Yeah, I was,
Yeah, which
young,
is like
but
it's just like a very blatant example of how all politics is partially theatrics, and what it is just disguising the true incentive. Where it's like that was the overt reason was like, oh yeah, these crazy terrorists who did this, but like obviously the covert reason, which there's like an information access divide that exists where like a small percentage of the population who's in these positions and who has these connections is just has the mindset, the worldview, and the understanding of what actually is going on. They have, maybe it's an understanding of human nature or just an understanding of history. They understand what's going on, and those are tend to be the people who do pretty well on an individual level, whether through connections or merit or whatever. But they end up getting to these positions. The only way you get there is by understanding what's going on. I mean, I hope at least. And so part of their job, like part of the job of the media and the politicians is to basically game democracy into they basically they understand that that democracy it is ran by the majority indirectly, and that the majority are also very stupid and easily influenced, and so their job is to influence the majority in one way or another by any means
mhm.
necessary. Most of the time, that means lying about the reason we're doing this or lying about what we're actually doing, just because they can frame it in a way where you're going to get a large majority of people who are going to jump on board and say, "Yeah, this is a great idea," and anyone who doesn't like it is anti-America, and it's like you don't even understand the idea. You think
Well,
that
that
we're going to
the
attack
Iraq
some
War.
wild barbarians who hate us because of our freedom, when in reality, it's I mean all of the the history you just gave, and I mean you go down this rabbit hole forever and realize that these are all not even in the United States interests, like economically or whatever, in the individual's interests who run the United States. And like it's not like they're doing it for the good of our country. They're doing it for the good of themselves, which unfortunately, when other countries can buy our politicians or big companies can buy our politicians, then the politicians' interest is no longer the same interest as the government's or like the countries.
The government's
Yeah.
interest is no longer aligned with the people's for sure.
Yes,
No,
yes,
they're a totally
exactly.
different class of people.
But Lou, I had a question when you were talking that your basic argument is that it's Israel that's controlling America, not the other way around. My question is, why is that? Is it money? Like, is it just
Um,
that they can buy our politicians? That's kind of what they do,
Money
or is
is
it
a
dual
big part of
loyalty,
it.
or
Yeah, money's a big part of it. The Jews, I don't think are that different. I think than most people, but they have one superpower. And their advantage is that they have this diaspora community all over the world, just due to their history of of getting wiped out and having to spread around. They're I think it's either us or Mossad. They think maybe Mossad's even better with intelligence. They have spies essentially all over the world. I mean, you know, this idea of like I think of myself as an American. I'm a nationalist, but that's not how humans have typically like the idea of a country is still kind of new. It's only a couple hundred years old. So you have a lot of Jews that identify more as Jews and part of the Jewish tribe that are spread all over. I mean, so you know, I think a lot of these people that are making decisions and pushing policy, I don't call it dual loyalty. I mean that you ultimately have one loyalty,
Yeah,
one
yeah, good
predominant
point.
loyalty that and it's to you know to Israel for a lot of them. I mean, Trump said in his own words. I'm sure you're aware of the Adelsons, right? Sheldon and Miriam Adelson. They
Mhm.
made all their money with casinos. They had the biggest casino in Las Vegas, and now they make even more money in Macau, China. But they make, billions and billions of dollars to, with casinos. And her husband died, so it's just her and Miriam now. And she was the largest single donor to Trump last election cycle. I think she gave at least $250 million.
He did come out and say, like, a couple weeks back, maybe months back, he literally came out and said, he's like, these people, they give me so much
That's what I
money.
was just gonna say.
He's like, they come in, they keep donating. All they care about is one thing: Israel, Israel, Israel.
Yep.
And it's like,
And
bro,
I
you're
always
not
do it
supposed to
for
say
him.
that out loud.
He literally says, like in that
Yeah, yeah,
quote,
he did say that.
that
Yeah.
like,
all they care
I
about
always
is
do it for
Israel.
him.
They give me all this money. And they want me to do things for Israel, and I always do it for him. Something like that. I mean, he said it openly.
bro, like
I think
you
that's the
watch
biggest problem they've had with Trump from the
you
beginning.
watch like
Like,
the
I thought he was on
2016
our side
Trump.
because they wanted to kill him, but like, I
Right.
think they just thought like, you're not really like like a lot of these guys, like JD Vance is like a
That's
politician. Like he's been groomed. He knows how to lie. Like he's a smooth, Barack Obama, smooth lying criminal operator. Trump's too much of a narcissist. Like at the end of the day, he's gonna try to make himself sound cool and like grand rather than like protecting like
yeah.
the group. Like looking out for like the interest.
I
He'll
mean
just say
that
stupid
is
shit.
that is such a I never even thought about that, but that's such a great point. For a while, Trump seemed to be like the guy who was fighting against this, and that made perfect sense because why does the media hate him? Why do they try to kill him? And it's like, no, it wasn't that he was fighting against it. They were just like, dude, this guy's gonna blow our this guy's gonna blow this guy's
Exactly. He's blowing their cover.
He's
blowing
Marco
it.
Rubio,
gonna
JD
come out and
Vance,
say it out
they'd be doing a
loud.
much better job of covering.
That's
Yep.
actually hilarious.
I think that's
This
what's
guy
happening. I mean,
no,
if they
that
would have
makes so
killed
much more
him,
sense.
you get what do you got? Nikki Haley, or like, we wouldn't have got that quote from Nikki Haley.
Yeah, it's the guy who like
Yeah.
you're like counting cards at the casino or something. He's like, I think it's a
Counting out loud.
great hit opportunity for like it's like bro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just blowing the
it's
cover.
too.
No,
It's just
that's
too
hilarious.
obvious. Yep.
But so like the diaspora idea, I've heard that before. I've looked into it a little bit, and I mean, it does kind of make sense. During the Napoleonic Wars was when the Rothschilds made all their money. The way they did so was by setting up individual banks or systems of banks in all of the different countries that were involved in the Napoleonic Wars. And what that would do was it would allow, because if you picture like, an old school war back in those days, it was like, we got to pay the soldiers. And if we're sending the soldiers to other countries who don't use the same currency as us, well, then we have no banks there. We have no way to pay them. And what the Rothschilds did was basically,
They sent the
they
five
basically,
brothers
yeah,
to set up like a central bank. They did like London, which became like the Bank of London, I think. Paris, Holland, I believe. Probably Germany and I don't know, one other one. But yeah,
Seemed like everybody was against Napoleon at one point there. Yeah.
But then yeah, the idea was to fund that, and then you would have an advantage when you can do money trading with someone far away from you that's like not exposed to the same like local pressures that you are.
but even the left, they rally against capitalism. And when I hear capitalism, I think free market trade, private property ownership. These are things that I think are good and important that we should have more of. But I think a lot of times that's a kind of a misunderstanding of the language. And I think a lot of the people on the left are not mad about a private company growing and doing well. They're mad about the banks, really, and this type of
Banks
banking
control
specifically,
everything.
which right, yeah, and I think
I
I think everyone can agree with that.
I just read a very good book. Murray Rothbard, he's a anarcho-capitalist like myself. He wrote a book called "What Government Has Done to Our Money," and the banks are definitely, you know, the head of the snake of everything we're kind of getting at here. And the left started to catch on to that when they were doing that Occupy Wall Street movement. You know, they knew something. You know, Wall Street's not exactly a bank, but more or less is. They you know, the interesting thing is, you know, that movement only lasted a couple weeks, and I've listened to people that were there, and what they talked about was like the people that were like leading it, basically made a deal with the corporations to back off of them if the corporations would help push their left wing causes. And you can look at like just the term racist. You know, after '08, that's when we really started the woke kind of era and the identity politics and stuff that's meant to divide and distract. But the corporations and banks were smart, and we were like, okay, like, you know, these guys are a little too close to, you know, hitting a nail on the head here, you know, but we can just, you know, give them gay marriage and give them, you know, whatever, and maybe that'll appease them. You know, we'll give them a bone, you know, and it worked, you know. But basically, in this book, you know, he explains the fraud that banks commit. We have a banking system called fractional reserve banking. So, you know, banks have always existed, and there's a purpose for a bank. You know, back in the day, you know, if I wanted to, you know, when gold was money, and I wanted to buy something from somebody, you know, gold's a big, heavy, cumbersome thing to move. You know, it's better to have a banking network where, like, I can just give you a piece of paper, a check, and you can you know, like, it's a reputable bank, and you can cash it in your town, or, you know, when you have to travel from Florida back to Illinois, you don't want to have to carry gold and worry about getting robbed on the way. You know, like,
That is what money started off as. It was this denomination you can trade in for gold. It was
well,
a
gold,
much easier,
yeah,
more fungible thing that you could carry around with you.
gold. There's all kinds of monies that have been used, but
Yeah.
gold's been a pretty good one because of its scarcity. It's you can melt it down and you know, but you know, that created the banking system. And like any other, you know, the company, their job is basically to store your shit, to keep it safe, and give it back to you whenever you want. And there's a lot of businesses like that. There's warehouses that store people's shit. There's you know, the not shipping containers. What are the storage units?
Yeah.
You can rent a storage unit and store your shit in it. But the difference with storing money is, you know, if I give a bank $100 and then I go back and I want my $100 back, I don't give a fuck if it's the same $100 bill that I gave them. They don't have to actually keep that $100 bill.
Yeah.
Versus whatever I put in a storage unit, it better be the same fucking shit when I get back. You know, like, I don't want somebody else's fucking.
You put in your Jordan collection, and then you come out and you got all fucking like Reeboks. It's like, well,
it's got to be the exact same.
That's not
So
what I put in.
The bankers realized, like, wait a second, they don't know the difference between this, and they don't care. So, and not everybody's going to come all at once asking for their money back. I know we got to pay them back if they did, but not everybody's going to come at once. You know, it was like if we were the bankers and we're sitting around, what do we
have all this money sitting around? What should we do? All this
money sitting around. Let's fucking do it. You know, let's commit fraud. Let's steal it. Let's invest with it. Let's use it. You know, and you know, he walks, like, in this book. It's a short. You know, I listened to it, so I don't know how long it is, but it was like a 5-hour listen. But he walks you through, like, that first concept of the idea with the bankers, like, about 120 years ago or something, 150 years ago, where they thought, like, yeah, why don't you just steal this? To where we are today with a central bank, you know, government fiat currency and everything. and they basically, would take your money, and it's at that moment, you sign a contract with them. I'm going to give you X amount of money. I'm going to give you $100. You're going to give it back to me when I want it back. The moment that they take that money and do something else with it, that's when the criminal act has occurred. They've just committed fraud because they cannot actually give me my money back. Now, the fact that that might not happen and there might not be enough people that ask for it all at once doesn't negate the fact that it's fraud. In any other industry and any other thing, that would be very obvious fraud. It was to people at the time, but this is how government kind of moves you and propagandizes you over time. It's like I'm hearing that for the first time now, and I'm thinking, oh, well, that's how my whole life was. I just thought that's how banks worked. Huh. Yeah, but like the first time they they move it along slowly over time, but it goes from that to, then they're loaning the money out, and every time they loan it's creating new money, is what he explains in this system. Is because they don't actually have to have the money. It's like they're making money because
banks do create money through fractional reserve banking.
Well, yeah, but what is creating money? How do they actually they can print money, they can make new money, but if they're not creating anything, they're not benefiting the economy, they're not doing anything, they're not actually making any more money or value. They're just devaluing.
They're devaluing.
They're devaluing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I take that wall and I painted it blue, maybe it cost me $20 for a gallon of paint, but once I've done the work of taping that up and painting it and not getting it all over the fish and everything, the wall being painted blue is worth more than $20 because it took hours of my work to do it. So that's what creating money is. Taking material and making something better with it. I think a lot of leftists and communists kind of think that it's like this zero-sum gain and that all these billionaires are only billionaires because they're stealing from the poor people, and that's why they're poor, because the billionaires took it all. But, I mean, most of the billionaires today are thieves because they use government to get it. But, I mean, you could make money, by, through your labor and producing something, but banks don't produce anything.
Well, I think what you're saying is that there's a difference between money and value, and the idea of hey, let's give everyone more money doesn't actually produce any more value. All it does is devalue the money that's already there. So now your house that used to be worth $200,000, well, the government gave everybody a bunch of money, so they still can't afford that house because that house is now worth $1 million, but they feel richer because the numbers on their screen are higher, but they can't afford anything in addition to what they could have before they printed all the money. But you increase the money supply, it doesn't increase the things.
No, it doesn't.
It
just causes inflation, which they do by design. Like it causes the business cycle. He explains, like we think about this. They brainwash us into thinking there's a business cycle, that things just go up and then down. Like you have to have a recession every so often. There is no business cycle without fractional reserve, fiat money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he walks you through the whole process of how we went off the gold standard, took a totally fiat money system. I mean, the British call their currency pounds because pound meant like
pound sterling.
It was a unit of measurement of a metal, whatever it was, silver or gold. Same with dollar. It's like a German term for a quantity, like a weight of a metal. It was all supposed to be backed by something. It was just supposed to be, government was just supposed to help facilitate like a better way to have checks that, but it was all supposed to be backed, and then they just stole it all. And now it's backed by nothing. They can just print as much as they want. But
I mean, money itself, as we know it, like paper currency was, I mean, originally that was a receipt. That was a receipt that says I did business. That was like, it's what I bring back to the bank to show them that I have this much gold in there. But I mean, people just began trading receipts because then it's like, why would I go back, get my gold and then bring it back here? And then you got to go back. It's like, we all got our gold in there. I'll just give you my receipt so that you can get it whenever you're back at the bank, and that was how paper money kind of started. And now there is no backing; it's literally just paper. Well, it's not even paper; it's literally just numbers on your screen. Lou, I got to imagine you're a crypto fan after that.
Bitcoin. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I like
okay, yeah.
Bitcoin.
I mean, that's exactly how I like my first when I started trying to figure out what crypto was for the first time, and it was like the reason people don't get crypto is because they don't get money, and once you get money, then then you see like most people don't understand what the value, like they think crypto is a scam, specifically like
Well, a lot of it
the
is.
older
Yeah.
generations. A lot of it is, but like they like my dad, for example, he's asked me, we've had these kind of conversations where he's like, I just don't get it. Like, why would I, like, what's the difference between that? Like, that seems like fake money. Like, I've got real money. It's like, the truth is the opposite. The truth is that you have fake money, and I mean, Bitcoin is far more real money
Oh yeah.
than your US
It has
dollar. That's for sure.
a scarcity. It's got a set amount. It's better than gold. On pay.
It's better than gold. It's better than any currency ever. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at like the actual engineering values of like a currency, what makes it a good, like, why don't we trade like leaves or sticks? Well, scarcity is a big one, but there's scarce things that we don't want to trade either. You know what's pretty scarce?
Uranium.
Yeah, EU, what is it called? EUV lithography machines. Those are very scarce. There's only like less than 100 in the world. Why don't we use those as currency? Well, because they're not divisible and they're not very portable. And so it's
Right.
like you got to find a thing that is all of those. And if you look at everything that's ever been tried to be used as currencies, and you actually like quantified it objectively and like gave it a an objective
Bitcoin
metric,
is the best.
Bitcoin is by far the best. I mean, and I'm sure that's the thing is Bitcoin itself also does have some flaws that there's a
Uh,
possibility it ends up not being Bitcoin. I mean, I like
yeah,
Bitcoin Cash. I think
I
Bitcoin
was
Cash is
gonna
better.
say like
But either way, I
thoughts.
mean,
Lou thoughts that like Bitcoin may not even be the best like Bitcoin out there. That it could
mhm.
in the long run actually be worth zero.
I don't. I mean, you can make the art. My cat here, who's made some appearances, I named him Satoshi after Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin guy. But
Lou, have you
I don't
read
know. I don't see what's better than Bitcoin. I mean, I'm not.
High fees, very slow. They're like
Lou, have you read the
Energy's
book Hijacking Bitcoin? It's called by Roger Ver.
Yeah, Roger Ver. I never read his book, but I've listened to him. He makes some good arguments. Yeah, I think they've done a bad job of I don't think they've done a good job with Bitcoin, but I don't see
That
what's
book.
better, the Cash, Bitcoin Cash. You think?
Well, so I would highly recommend checking that one out because I reading that book really kind of changed my mind, and I'm still not sure because it is a very like technical, complex topic that I'm not an expert at. But based on, I mean, he makes a very compelling case, and it's like, okay, if your cash name is Satoshi, then you would agree that Bitcoin Cash is actually better because Bitcoin Cash is the original design, and that's Roger Ver's case at least. And so, I mean,
I don't know.
he sold
Maybe I
me,
don't
but
know
that's just because
a
I'm a
ton
layman.
about it. Maybe it
Yeah, I mean,
is. I
I
mean,
can't speak to it as if I'm an expert either, but his point basically is that what ends up happening is that you've got, obviously it's designed to be like a decentralized real currency that's not, corruptible in the same way that the fiat currency was. But what ends up happening then is because a lot of it comes down to just what we're talking about right now, which is like the education gap between most people and the experts. And there's only a small amount of people who actually understand what this thing is early on in 2009, 2010, up until 2012 to 15. And that small group of people are all tech guys who kind of roll in similar circles. And what ends up happening is you kind of have two groups, two ideological groups it was the big blockers versus the small blockers. And not to get like super technical because I can't really uh articulate it all very good anyway, but basically the problem came down, and Nick, you said that the slow moving transaction fees. There was a problem where based on the actual blocks in the chain, the amount of transactions that was happening was going to get slower and slower as more people joined the network. And the solution to this, which was in the original white paper, is that, well, then you just make the block bigger. But the other side of the argument was, well, if you make the block bigger, then only the most powerful computers would be able to handle mining it. And so you would no longer be able to mine it on like a simple computer that most people have. That would hurt the decentralization aspect of it. And
Mhm.
so we got to make sure we maintain small blocks. And so they're willing to take on that cost of the slowing down and the higher
Yeah.
transaction fees and clogging up the network basically. While meanwhile there's another group saying, no, we're just going to make the bigger blocks because, and they're right, compute is going to grow exponentially too. So eventually, even the average computer that everyone has is going to have enough compute to run the big blocks. That was the argument. What ends up happening is there's a fork, and the big blockers, the guys who wanted to scale, they forked off from the original blockchain. And when that happens, now there's two, and now it was a battle for the name Bitcoin. And the other side won. So they won the name Bitcoin, but they're not actually like Bitcoin as it is not actually what Satoshi designed. Satoshi designed Bitcoin Cash, and they had to
Well, wait.
change the name because
My understanding was that Bitcoin Cash, like, if you have like something like 90% of the people using the network, it's like kind of like a democracy. If you have something like 90% that
Mhm.
vote to change it, it could be changed. And that Bitcoin Cash was that change. Like you're saying, maybe the papers wrote in that there was, you could change it when you need more compute or whatever. But I think Bitcoin
Well,
is the
no,
same
that's right.
Bitcoin.
That's
Bitcoin
that's
Cash is them
so
doing what the white papers told them to do, right? And increasing it.
yes. Well, they're both the same. So they both are born from Bitcoin. The blockchain that Satoshi Nakamoto created, i- that's the same blockchain as both of them. And what happens is it literally forks so that
Yeah.
like you've got the chain and it was that it was the democracy aspect of it, which is we actually titled it when we talked about this, we titled the episode, if you don't like it,
You
you
can
can fork
fork off.
off.
You can fork
And
off.
that's what happened was that the majority wanted to do the small blocks, and it was a minority, I guess, who
I wanted
wanted to stick
to
with the original Satoshi vision, and so that minority had to fork off and become Bitcoin Cash, while
yeah.
the rest of them got to keep the name Bitcoin. I guess it was the
My
majority
understanding
that kept the
also
name.
is, I'm not like, I guess I classify myself as a Bitcoin maximalist. I mean, I do think there's still a place for other cryptocurrencies. I don't
Oh,
think
there
I should
definitely,
be
yeah,
using
definitely is.
Bitcoin for like my day to day. Like if I want to send you $5 or something like I would on Venmo, like I'm not going to use the Bitcoin blockchain, but Bitcoin I think is like the foundation. It's the gold. It's the digital
Hmm.
gold.
It's the gold,
It's where
yeah.
you store your money. You know, I could see having hundreds of different currencies. Maybe Amazon wants to make a coin, and I move like, I spend $500 a month on Amazon. I move some money from Bitcoin into my Amazon tokens, and I spend them there, and um, you know, Walmart has their token. I move some money from Bitcoin into that, and I my day to day transactions, like I have little bank accounts of other currencies that do that are low transaction fees, like that problem you're talking
Yeah.
about with the
Right.
the compute power and stuff. Like you only should be using that. Like it's kind of a trade off. Is how I understood Satoshi's vision. Like you can't have it all. Like that high compute cost and the slower, limited amount of blocks and everything is part of the way it's built to make it secure and
Could we
you know
switch from off of the US dollar from fiat currency to cryptocurrency peacefully?
what do you mean
Well,
we I wouldn't
I
do
have
it, but
I've got a good one on this. So we actually are right now. Well, I guess when we say cryptocurrency, everyone thinks like Bitcoin or things. I'll
Decentral.
say, well, yes, well that becomes a problem. I'll say blockchain currency. I mean, the technology that Satoshi invented was a blockchain. we are switching to blockchain currency. We're doing so intentionally to sidestep the decentralization part of it, and we're doing that by using stable coins. And like we were talking about with, once you put your money in the bank, it's no longer your money, it's their money now. And so they don't actually have to convince us all to switch to another to switch to blockchain. The banks just have to switch. And then now the numbers on our screen no longer represent as if, I mean, they haven't in a while anyway, but they no longer represent like paper US dollars. They now represent stable coins backed by US denominated uh, financial instruments, which are treasury bonds mostly. So it's like basically what they're doing is they're just pulling the old switcheroo so that they can create more money without actually creating more. Like they're not going to actually like print more US dollars. They're just going to start issuing these stable coins that are backed by US dollars so that, someone has the dollar and someone else has the stable coin that's backed by that dollar. It's the same thing again. That's what's happening now. And they're using blockchain as like a kind of a Trojan horse to do this. And
But
I
I'm talking
mean,
about
they are doing it through the private sector, but
the decentralized aspect of that. Like, could we foreseeably do that without revolution? Essentially, could that be a peaceful transition or no?
Well,
yeah, I would say
individual
no
person
because
doing it.
well, and what it does is it does kind of feed a little bit of a diaspora kind of situation because I mean realistically, everyone I myself talk about China is the biggest threat to the United States or whatever global warming whatever is the biggest threat. Realistically, what's actually the biggest threat to the United States is cryptocurrencies for sure because what's the United States number one weapon is not the military. It's the dollar, and there's now better dollars. That's the big threat. That's probably one of the major root causes of the decline is the fact that I mean we talk about 2008. 2008 is a critical year. You brought up a good point about how Occupy Wall Street then kind of made a deal with Wall Street. A lot of shit happened that year. Bitcoin also became a thing that year, and so it's like there's many things, but I mean, the creation of blockchain, the creation of a better currency than we had, our big thing was that we had the best currency. That was our thing. Everyone says, oh, we had the best military, we had the nukes. That was our thing too. But by the 90s, I mean, other countries had nukes. And the thing about nukes is it's like you can't even use them because if you use them, then you just die too. So that wasn't even our thing. Our thing was the dollar. Our dollar was the best. Now there's better dollars. And so, I mean, when it comes to
another
long way
reason
of
we're on
saying
the
that
decline.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying that. Yes, I agree with you there. That's probably the main threat to the people who are trying to keep the power where it is.
And I think we're like the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire collapsed from within. It wasn't the barbarians that took it out. It was, infighting, the corruption, what happens with big companies and big empires. Our problem is within. I mean, our country was founded by people who started a revolution over a 1% tax on tea. And now we're taxed on everything through the roof.
I mean, I would agree, and I would say I would even throw kind of back to the same thing we've been talking about. Part of the problem with the Roman Empire was also that they were debasing their currency because they were shaving them down, and you would have like a gilded coin. It would be like silver, but they'd paint it gold and tell you it was gold. And that was like the modern, that was that era's version of quantitative easing.
Come up with more and more creative and more efficient ways to steal money. Governments, I mean, World War I was the first war with fiat currency. That war was so bad because up until that point, when the European powers wanted to go to war with each other, they had to have the money. They'd have to use what they had in their war chests, and then they maybe send out tax collectors to steal what they could. And then when one side ran out of money, that ended the war. But they went to a fiat money system. They, learned this. I don't know if Lincoln was the first one, but Lincoln was our first president to create a fiat currency to use the greenbacks to help fund the war. But World War One, I mean, they all moved to a fiat money system so they could basically just spend as much as they wanted, and it was just devaluing the current, like they didn't run out of money, it just would devalue the currency you were hiding in your mattress at home. So they could fight till they were exhausted. There was nothing left. No soldiers willing to fight or, whatever. Money was no longer a
Mhm.
limitation. I mean, we've probably spent 100 billion already in Iran. Money's no issue. I mean, of course we're broke and it's going to hurt us the more we spend, but I mean, you know, the, it's a good monetary system for government to do its favorite thing, which is war. War is about creating a larger tax base. The Venezuela operation, I didn't realize till recently. Forget which one he is. John Paulson or something. One of the Israelis that
Robert
are
Paulson.
funding the. Oh, there's three. There's three big donors for that guy that's running against Massey. I know Miriam Adelson, um, John Paulson or something. I think is one of them. Okay, look it up quick. But there's three of them. One of them bought. I think it was Citgo, the gas company in Venezuela. He's known for buying like
Oh,
this.
Paul Singer, right?
Paul Singer, that might have been it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He bought some kind of oil company or interest in Venezuela like a couple weeks before he went in there, and for nothing because they weren't Venezuela wasn't doing business with us very much. But he stands to make the most money of anybody from that operation. I mean, I didn't really understand what that was about. We don't have refineries for Venezuelan oil. They have different type of oil. I know they send oil to Israel now. They didn't before, but like it hasn't. Like I don't think that was to the benefit of the American people. I don't think I'm gonna get any benefit from that, but I think he will. And I think he's one of those corrupt people that pay off politicians to make money and help his corporation and his business interests. I forget what my point I was getting at what that was, but uh,
Have you heard the I think it's called Gresham's Law, and I can't think of the guy's first name, but the the quote being bad money always chases out good money, and kind of thinking about what you were just saying there, which is like fiat currency is definitely bad money when it comes to like its actual use case and its sustainability, and something like Bitcoin is much better. The problem is that the bad money, I mean, what is it actually doing is it's basically putting the cart before the horse, and it's saying, hey, we don't have anything to trade you, anything real to trade for your services, but we will trick you into thinking we do by giving you this thing that seems to be valuable, but it's actually we just created out of thin air.
mhm.
But we're going to basically bank on the fact that we will create something more to back it. Like the entire economy is banking on the fact that like in the future we will have more actual value, so we can just pretend we do now. That's the entire thing, and so it's like
Stealing from the future
it's
for
yeah,
current consumption.
yes, exactly right, and so that is going to chase out the. I mean, that's what I would worry about at least if the entire country or the entire world were to switch to an actual better currency like Bitcoin or something. Well, then what would actually end up happening is that we would stop. Which maybe that's a good thing. We would stop like we would stop the rapid like expansion in technological advancement that we're seeing right now, because there would no longer be funding for it. I mean, the thing about Bitcoin is like
Where's the funding come
there's
from?
it comes from nowhere, but it comes from
Well, it
the
has to
fact
come
that
from somewhere. I mean, you're saying they get the funding because they print money, but when they print money,
yeah,
they're
but there's
stealing
no
it from you
actual
and me.
value. Right. There yeah, no, yes. They're stealing it from us, and but the thing about but that's what I'm saying is that the fact that you can't steal Bitcoin from us means that you won't be able to fund the things that are actually like driving our economy forward.
Well, what's
Not
driving
that
our
that's a
I
bad
mean, I
thing.
just fundamentally I don't know if what do you like to me the economy is can I afford a house? Can I raise a family? Do we have a middle class? Like I don't care about the S and what the Dow is at or like that's not the economy to me. So I think what you're
Well, I mean,
saying is
I
the
guess
system
to
is like
say,
stealing money from us to benefit these big industries to steal from the future and run up their stock prices. I definitely don't think that's a good thing. You're painting that like that's this we're going to sacrifice something by switching. I mean, to me that stops the theft. It allows the average person to start to rebuild, you know?
yeah, no, I don't mean to, and that I don't really mean to like paint it in a good or bad lens. I'm on the fence still, but there is part of it which is that the one part that's actually right and probably better. I mean, there's good and bad to both sides, and I'm more of a Bitcoin fan than I am a US dollar fan. But the thing about the US dollar is that because of its flaws, it is able to because it's able to borrow from the future, it is able to drive the future because otherwise there'd be no way to fund something that's like so expensive of an upfront cost, such as something like Nvidia, where it's but yes, okay, the stock price goes up and it makes a few people rich and whatever, but more importantly is if we can fund these massive projects that are actually valuable innovations, like that might cure a lot of diseases. If you look at like some of the biotech stuff, CRISPR and all these things, these are all funded by fake money that doesn't exist that we borrowed from the future to fund it, but it's actually making the future better. I mean, 30 years ago,
I don't
none of
think
these
it's
internet
gotten better.
companies.
What's what
I
look at
mean, I think it's gotten better, definitely. I mean, when it
in what
comes to like
sense?
the actual, well, when it comes to like like technology, when it comes to the things that we have, I mean, it's always
Well,
getting
we got more
better.
fancy gadgets, but the average, age of
I mean, we
somebody to
wouldn't be able
buy a
to.
home in this country is 40 years old. I mean, the middle
Yeah, yeah,
class
I
is
know it.
eroding. Like, what's better about
That
like I can order something on Amazon and it'll be at my house in a day. That's great, but I don't think that matters as much
But
as
at what
being able to start
cost?
a family. Yeah,
I mean, no, I agree, 100% agree that starting the family, all the things you're talking about here are like the foundational things that we need to, uh, you know, preserve. That can't go away. We got to keep that. But the fact that like if we were to value, human life and human quality of life as a goal to aim for, I mean, how about when your family, um, when you have a bunch of kids, but most of them die as children because we don't have any type of technology to, in the healthcare aspect. What if we can expand human life, an extra
sick
20,
care.
30,
We got a
40
sick care
years?
system.
I know, and
I
that's
don't know.
another
I think
problem
we're
with
we're
the
beyond
system.
that point of you know, half my children die from malaria and typhoid. I mean,
But we wouldn't be beyond that. I guess that's
without
my point
Keynesian
is that
economics.
the reason that we were able to develop these things is because we were able to borrow from the future to fund them.
I disagree. I don't think so.
I mean, maybe not in all cases, but I mean that's a it depends on what it's. I mean, there's good debt and bad debt. You could have bad debt. If I borrow from the future to buy myself a vacation to Vegas, that's bad debt. That's not going to make my life any better. But if I take out a loan to start a business that actually is going to provide me more income coming in, and I'm going to be able to pay back that loan and have even more. Well, then that was a good loan to take out. The thing about like something like Bitcoin, like a real currency, is that you can't when you can't create out of thin air, then there's no loans. So that's all. I mean, that's just
Well,
one.
there's within Austrian economics. I mean, there's people with money that loan to people that have good ideas. I mean, all that can happen. I mean, what you're advocating for is fraud, theft.
I'm not advocating
That
for it either. I'm just saying I'm not
well,
advocating for it at all.
I guess. Well, yeah, I guess you said you're on the fence, but I'm saying like that argument is advocating that we'd be better off if we commit fraud and theft. Trust me. I mean, obviously there's evidence that it doesn't work. Maybe I could find an example where it did work, but um,
No, I
there's
mean it is fraud. I agree with that. And well, I
Because
guess the
the
fraudulent part of
incentive
it.
the incentive is still there without having to borrow against your future. The incentive is still there to increase longevity of life, to reduce disease, to, allow for, more prosperity to occur. Lou's point is people would still have that motivation to do these things without forcing other people, future taxpayers, to pay for it. Wherein we've already discussed that more often than not, the government is probably missing the mark rather than hitting the mark on their projects because they have
Well,
no
yeah, I mean
accountability.
government absolutely, but I'm just saying when it comes to like the banks, like when it comes to the fractional reserve
Government
banking.
controls the banks. They're all together. There's no separating it in this system that you're talking.
Fair
The
enough.
Keynesian
Okay.
economic system is they're too intertwined. So you're gonna have to defend government if you're gonna make the Keynesian argument.
Well, I hate doing that. I mean, okay, let me ask you then. When you say the Keynesian argument, I know a little bit about Keynes. I know that he was there for Bretton Woods, and I know that he was one of the minds behind the idea of like stimulus during the Great Depression. Um, what is the Keynesian argument?
What you
Like,
laid out that you should steal from the future and that you should have. He also
okay,
believed that you should
I
have
didn't realize that.
inflation. He believes that inflation helps
It drives
incentivize.
growth.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay. I get.
uh,
Basically, the idea is that
Incentivize
with a little bit of
spending.
an
yeah.
yeah, it
Well, that's
incentivizes
what it
velocity.
does. Yeah.
But I mean,
Well, that the Wright
I would
brothers are a
partially
good
agree.
example of the opposite of that. So the Wright brothers invented flight planes. Without them, that's a huge. Somebody would have probably figured it out eventually if it wasn't them. But whatever. Maybe we got to it a lot quicker because of these guys. But they had a bike shop. They made bikes or sold bikes or something, and it was only because they already had a successful business and made a bunch of money and had a bunch saved that they were willing to take the risk to try something crazy like make a plane.
Hmm.
They would have never done that if they didn't have that safety net of money. So that's where the Keynesian argument falls apart because Keynes believes like, well, nobody should have any money saved. It should all be a casino. Your money should be just inflating and dissolving in your hands to force you to not hoard it and protect yourself and have the safe haven of the money you earned. You should be forced to give it to the corporations and help them grow and make because they can make more money with it and that'll help grow. Well, then you don't have the Wright brothers, because they don't do that without the safety net. And it's one of those things like we'll never know, like where would I be if I didn't have X amount of money stolen from me per year from the government? Maybe I would have invented something, but I'm too busy trying to make up the money that's being stolen from me.
Or, I mean, I could see both sides of this. I haven't heard it articulated like that, and that's a good way to put it. But also, if part of it is also the incentive structure. I mean, theoretically, now we've already talked about how like it's all corrupted at this point, which is. But if we were to just look at it theoretically, I mean, the idea that okay, I'm a guy who I go and I get my paycheck, and I do one job at a company, and I have all this money sitting in my bank account, sitting there when if I were to take that money and invest it into like another company, I mean, yeah, like, ideally, like, hey, there's this other guy who's going to take this big risk that could become huge, and I'm going to bet on him being successful. If everyone is incentivized to do that, it does create a total like collectively, there is more value being made than there would be otherwise by
Why
like
would
having
you
money sitting
compel
on the
them to do it? Why?
sidelines.
But yeah, that's great. Like
Well, that's the part
I think
I
what you're
started to
saying
come
is it's
around.
good.
Well,
It's good to invest in people and stuff. But you're saying that if you don't play, if you think it's a good idea to do, like I just said, there's both scenarios. There's the scenario where you're better off keeping your money and saving it, and then maybe that'll cause the innovation. And then there's the opposite scenario that does exist. But why would government compel? Like, why would they take away the one option so that you have to play like where it's not like because what you're laying out is exists without inflation, without fiat money, like I can save up a bunch of money and maybe I don't come up with an idea on how to make a plane, but somebody else seems to have a good idea and I'll give them my money that I saved up.
Right, right.
Like
No,
why would I be
I agree.
incentivized to like
Yeah.
the fear of the Keynesians is that I'm just going to hoard all this money and it's, basically like I said with the banks, like you give the money to the banks, it was pissing them off that they couldn't steal it, that they just had their hands on it and they had to come up with a system where they can use it and steal it, do a, commit fraud. So it's the same with the money in that I earn. If I want to keep it in my mattress, that pisses them off. They want to have that money because then they can make money with that money, you know. So that's the only reason. I mean, Keynes wasn't even a real economic, or he didn't really know anything about economics. He just spoke the language government liked to hear. You know, government. There was this
True.
one guy
I mean,
that was talking to Noam Chomsky back in the day, and he was, Chomsky's like, "Oh, you're a propagandist. You're saying all this stuff, whatever the regime wants." And the guy's like, "No, no, no. I believe this stuff. I really, this is what I believe." I forget what they were talking about. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't doubt that you believe that, but you wouldn't be sitting in that chair if you didn't believe. Like they put you in that chair because you believe it. Whether you believe it or you're just a good liar. Like Keynes became the great economist that he was because whether he believed his bullshit or not, because government liked what he was
Because you're
saying, and
allowed to
government
be
had
there.
permission to steal your money. That's all it was. I mean, it's found like there's no fundamentals to it at all. It doesn't make sense. I mean, there's like you could come out with like one or two use cases, but like if you apply it universally across the board, if you just look at how it's played out through all these
I mean,
economies.
I would. I partially agree that it doesn't make sense because there is no end, but also like I don't think it's like one or two use case. I think that it's like it's widely done. It's widely been successful, like almost all around when it comes to like
How?
depending on what you're optimizing for. If you're optimizing for like increasing, technology, which I think is probably one of the main goals of government and companies, well then it's been great. It's been like
I
the
don't know
most
about
valuable tool
that. I
we've ever
mean,
had.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's tough to argue something like this though, because it's like what would have been, But I would consider the
Well, it just
airplane
I
a
mean, but just
technological evolution that happened thanks
but mechanistically,
before Keynesian economics. You know, we don't know
well,
what would have happened otherwise.
I mean, if we look at the rate the technology has grown, it's been growing exponentially. I mean, we yeah, it's a the Wright brothers is a good counterexample. Yes, but the only like mechanical like mechanism that's different here is that the Wright brothers would have been able to make the plane before they made all that money if they had the. You no longer need to work for 40 years to build up enough money to start your own business. If you have a good idea, now we can front you that money. Like we can make that money out of thin air, give it to
You could
you,
steal it from
bet on
me.
you. Well, but the stealing only occurs when the person who is creating the money and giving the loan is not holding the risk. That's the part that's the problem. The idea that like the banks can create this money and loan it out, and if that loan doesn't make a return on investment, now they, I mean, no, realistically, they made a bad bet. They should lose all their money, but no, they don't.
It becomes theft
Instead,
when they're backed by us.
Well,
it
again, that's
becomes
back to the fractional
exactly
reserve
they're
bank.
backed by
The
us.
fraud happens when they steal the money. You're saying that, yeah, they stole the money, but if they make money on it, then it's not stealing.
Well, it's it.
So, like,
I'll say,
Sam
well, let me,
Bankman-Fried's in jail right now because he stole all that money, and then he couldn't pay it
and you
back.
couldn't pay it back, right? I mean, if
But
you
he
can pay
did
it
the
back,
same
you
thing
didn't
all the
steal
banks
it.
do, and all everything you're talking about. It's just
Well,
when
no, I
your
know, but
system collapses, it's like devastating. It's 2008. It's a house of cards that just completely crumbles in on itself.
I know, and we're gonna agree on this one. And me and Nick, we've talked about this before too. Where my stance on this is that the banks should have been there. We should have let them fail, and we all would have taken a rough go for it. But
How
then
would
there would
that
have been
work?
new
And
banks that started.
well,
Because the
we have a
banks took the
central
risk.
bank.
I
What do
didn't
you
take
mean
the
new
risk.
banks? We have a central bank already. We're beyond banks
Well,
competing.
I mean, if we're looking at the incentive structure, it like you said, the my when I put my money in a bank, I'm under the impression that they're going to hold my money, right? If I'm under that
They don't.
impression, well, I know that they don't. And if I'm under the impression that they do, and they tell me that, yeah, we're going to hold your money, we're going to give it back to you when you want it, and then I go back and I ask for it back and they say, oh, no, we're not going to give it to you, well, then yes, I agree, that's fraud. But if I'm under the impression that, hey, I've got this money, I don't have any reason to use it anytime soon, I'll give it to you. You guys can loan it out, you guys can make interest on it, just make sure I get a cut of that interest. And then when I come back, as long as you guarantee me that I'll be able to take somebody's money out of the bank to make sure I'm
Those are
even,
two different
well then
things.
that's a deal. But I
Okay,
know
well,
they're two different
those are two
things.
different things. So
I'm
there's giving
all right, go
money.
again.
That's an investment. I'm not leaving, like, the
Right.
idea of a bank is I'm putting money there to store it. What you talked about the second time was an investment. I'm gonna give you money and you're gonna, like, that's like giving money to a broker. You're gonna go invest
Yes.
this and I want a cut of it. That's a different thing. We have a industry for that, and then we have a banking industry where you just store your money to keep it safe.
But the but
The fraud
but
happens
the
the second they steal that money. When you give them the money and they take it and steal it, and they can't actually give it back to you if you ask. I mean, right now they have government bailing them out. I mean, the banks can go under, and we're FDI insured up to 250K or something. It's just more, they just print it and steal it from me in another way to give back to me. I'm not actually insured. I'm the backstop that's backstopping me. But
Mhm.
that's when the fraud occurs, when they steal the money and go spend it however they decide to spend it. Like like I said before, it's like if you were operating a storage unit. I mean, if I'm paying you, like, I'd rather pay a bank a storage fee than get what the fuck do banks give now? 0.05%.
some bullshit return. So I've got $0 in the bank, all invested in somewhere. But I guess my only thing on that is that
You have to,
the
right?
banks do not have a big sign on the front that says. At one point they did, and they were fraudsters. At this point, everyone kind of, I mean, most people have kind of caught on to that, and so now the bank's business model is well understood. The problem is that they shouldn't be bailed out if they fail. We should be bailed out. It shouldn't be the banks get all the money. It should be that no, I get if I put my money in a bank and the bank can't give it back, well then the bank should be the one held responsible for that, not me. And rather than any of that happening, what ends up happening is that nobody's held responsible. Well, I am, because they water down my money. They return me the same amount of money that I had before, except now it's like a smaller percentage of the pie. That's the problem. But the banks are not coming up to you and telling you, hey, I'm going to hold your money right here for you. The bank's business model is transparent. They're not hiding the ball really anymore. They were for like a long time, and that's why like so many of them
It
failed,
moved
and that's why the
slowly to
central
get
bank
to
was
this
made.
point. Yeah, it's been a slow
Yeah, it was.
progression
Yeah,
to this.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I mean, look, I'm not, I find myself advocating for the banks, which I'm not for. But what I'm saying, I guess, is that like there's an incentive for, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is the incentive structure is aligned where it does help everyone up until the point at which the banks make a bad bet and now rely on a government bailout.
So you
If
don't
the
believe
banks
in,
make
but
a
you don't
bad
believe
bet
in
and go,
voluntarism. There's too many hypocrisy. Like, you make good points here and there, but, like, if you tried to wrap all your things around, like, say what you will about, you could say I'm utopian, I believe in something that couldn't work or whatever, but it's consistent. You said that you believe in voluntary exchange, free market, but then you also think that you're so smart that even though this is fraud, it's better, and that you should be forced to contribute to this system. So that's not
no,
voluntary.
no,
Like,
I
your things
not at
aren't.
all what I said. You shouldn't be I never said you should be forced to. I said that it would,
We are.
that if
What do
you,
you mean? You're a Keynesian. We are forced.
how am I forced to? I don't have to. I don't have to invest my money. I could keep it in my savings account. People do it all the time. I mean, I tell my fiance to
You-
stop
you-
doing
you
it
have to
because
have
it's
the bank.
There
dumb.
is
But
no money in a savings account. When you give it to them in a savings account, they steal it.
yes, but you're
Immediately.
putting it in a saving. I mean, if you don't understand what a bank is, then you can say, "Oh, they tricked me." But if you understand what a bank is, you understand that you're putting money in there so that they can invest it somewhere. And when you ask for it back, they will give it back, unless
They
they
can't. They can't give it back. If everybody asked all at once, they can't give it back. That's fraud.
yes, and that's just well, they can give it back, and then this is where the problem.
They
This is
can't.
where the fraud starts right here.
No, it
The
starts
fraud
when
starts.
they didn't. No, look. Next time you put money in a bank, look at what you sign and you agree to. They're agreeing to give you that money back when you ask for it. They
Right,
can't.
and if they can't, no, they can because the government will print more
Then
and
let's
give it
all
to
go
them. They're
ask for it
FDIC
back and see
insured.
if they give it back. They can't. They
They
can't give it all
did in
back.
2008. They did in 2008. They did in 2008
They
because the
didn't.
government printed. Yeah, they did. Every
The ba- when the
in two-
banks when 2008 happened, everybody's money that was in the bank was refunded.
Wasn't
yeah,
it?
yes, but it wasn't the same. But no, you're not wrong though. The point is that yes,
It
the
wasn't.
dollar, the
It's
numbers.
only FDI
Yes,
insured up to a certain point, so anything above that was gone if a bank went under. And anything
the
that's
numbers
FDI
on the
insured is just
screen.
stolen money to begin with. It's not even real. Like it's not like they painted a wall and made that money. They just stole it
But
give it
okay,
back to you.
the
And they stole it from you.
all right, I guess.
To give it back to you.
Well, hang on. There's a difference here. I just a point of like clarification. When it comes to money, there's a difference between like money and let's say purchasing power. So yeah, people got their money back, but they lost purchasing power, which is your point, which I agree with. That's why it's theft.
Sure.
Is
Yeah,
because
yeah.
is because you got your money back, but your money is no longer worth what it was. That's the theft right there. But that only comes when the government prints money. I guess what I'm saying is that the fundamental problem is the government bailouts is not the banks lending. If the banks lended at their own risk, there wouldn't be a problem because the banks that were not good at lending
But you don't see a
and lend it
problem with
into
them saying, "We'll take your $100. We'll give it back to you whenever you want." But if everybody asked for it all at once, they couldn't do it. You don't see a fundamental problem with that.
no, there's without a doubt a fundamental problem
Why
with
do
that.
banks
Yes.
get this special like why not, if this is a smart idea, then why don't we just carry that through the rest of the economy? Like why can't every industry commit that level of fraud? Why just banks? Why are they special?
No, I'm agreeing with you that
That's
if
a
you
good
promise
question.
me
Well, I mean,
if
if
you
it makes
promise
sense, you know,
if
I don't know.
you guarantee me that you will give me it back when I ask for it, and then you don't, then that is fraud. I've not at all disagreed with that. But I'm saying if you do, then it's not fraud.
But you're saying as long as they give me back a piece of paper that has the same numbers on it, just worth half the value, then they didn't commit fraud, even though the banks print the money.
Well,
The central
I mean,
bank that creates money.
okay, there's a
Yeah.
difference between a commercial bank and the central bank. The central
Not
bank
really. I mean,
is
it's all
Not
interconnected.
anymore.
Not really. Yeah. It's all,
Glass-Steagall.
no, I mean, okay. There definitely is a difference between the central bank and the commercial bank. The central bank actually has the power to print reserve base money. The commercial bank can only create M2 money, which is what we're talking about. That's the monopoly money. The reserve base money is what that money, your money in your bank account is not like reserve currency. That is backed twice. That is backed by a currency that's backed by US dollars. That's the money that you see in your bank account. The central bank is the only entity that's allowed to actually print reserves. And when you print reserves, there used to be a law that the banks could only lend or create M2 money up to 10x what their reserves were. That's not even a law anymore. They can print as much as they want. The requirement is 0% for how much they have to have on reserve. So, I mean, I don't really know
Sounds like fraud.
what.
yeah.
No,
Sounds
yeah,
like
I mean,
a really
that-
complicated money laundering, fraud, Ponzi scheme to me. The more
It
you
is
talk, the more
100%.
complicated.
It's
Yeah,
100%
I'm
that.
starting to lose track of it, and I read about this shit. I'm not an expert by any means, but I try to know what the hell's going on. You're twisting this so. I mean, this better be really like our economy must be fucking really humming for this complicated web of fraud to be worth it, and it's not.
Yeah, and it's just not.
It's not. It's not. It's just the insiders make the rules that benefit themselves.
Well, especially once you start to focus on what Lou was saying 20 or 30 minutes ago, it's like, well, what is the economy? It's like, well, if you think the economy is Nvidia, well, all right, then it's working pretty
Nvidia is
good
looking great.
for it's pretty good for Nvidia. But when it's guys trying to buy a house and raise a family, actually in the last 30 years, everyone's gotten fucked in that aspect.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think fractional
okay,
reserve
I
banking
mean,
helps to buy a house. I mean, the
it
house
does.
I
You
bought,
can't, hang on,
bought with
time out.
nothing.
No, you've been dissing me. You've been roasting me for a while. I'm going to get you back on this one. You don't think fractional reserve banking helps you buy a house? I do not know a single person. I've never met a single person who has showed up and bought a house cash. Never even heard of it.
Me.
Every single person who buys a house, okay, good for you, honestly. All jokes aside, pretty impressive. But most Americans use fractional reserve banking to be able to buy a house. No one will be
What
able to
other
buy a
choices
house
they
without
have?
one. Huh?
What other choices do they have other than cash?
What choice would they have if fractional reserve wasn't a thing? They would have no choice.
An Austrian economic model is the alternative.
And how? Okay,
So what's Austrian
explain.
versus
Yeah,
Keynesian?
explain.
There's a couple good books. The Road to Serfdom is a good one to read. Anything by Rothbard. You know, it's basically.
Also, I gotta call it here soon, boys. Just putting that out.
Yeah,
there.
I probably do too. This is
it's just
great one,
it's a
by
lot
the
of
way.
what I've been preaching is Austrian economics. It's sound money. It's you know, it's you have to have it's no government manipulation of the currency is another good way of putting it. I mean, it's just free market, laissez-faire capitalism with sound hard money. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but I mean that's what I advocate for. I think that is to the extent that we've used that system, that's where I think the wealth has been created and the advancements have happened. When we deviate from that system, when we deviate from liberty and, you know, go down, you know, like our governments become bigger, more socialist, that's where I see the decline. I see a direct correlation with all that. I think we're basically the people of this country have just been getting strip mined, and that money's been going to people who aren't even loyal to this country. These big corporations that, you know, these big banks, they're multinational. They don't give a fuck if this country lasts another 50 years. You know, they're beyond that.
Yeah.
That's what their system benefits is them accumulating as much political and economic power as possible to eventually, you know, win the game Monopoly. I mean, they get the survey. You know, you're worried about the capitalists taking over. I'm worried about the people that use government to create the surveillance state to just shut it down. And then they just get so, you know, they've created a monopoly in business. They use government to protect their monopoly, put anybody out of business that tries to fuck with them, and then use their monopoly on force and violence to keep everybody in check while they just strip mine everything till, you know, they're the bank. They have everything.
No, I mean, yeah, I agree, like, with 99%, and partially, I mean, even the things that I'm arguing with, I'm doing so for, you know, just devil's advocate purposes. The only thing I would say when it comes to, like, just kind of reverting back to the discussion about the fractional reserve banking, and you brought up voluntarism quite a bit, and I guess you know, thinking about it, my whole point is that if I am voluntarily taking on the risk that, hey, I'm gonna hand another person my money, and they're promising me that they'll give it back when I ask for it, and then they don't, and they made a legal agreement to give it back. They signed a contract that said they would give it back. Well, then they should be held liable. And my problem with it is not so much that they take that money and then lend it out, because they're taking a bet, and if they were bad at betting, then they wouldn't be in business for long, because they wouldn't be able to give back the money to the people who put their money in there.
They'd be out of business.
They would be
they'd
be out. Exactly. And they should be. The problem, I think, is, and I think you agree, is that when the government says, oh, hey, the banks, whenever you make a bad bet, we'll just create the money out of thin air and give it to you so that you can pay back the people that you stole from, then that's the problem right there. If you really trusted me, if I said I'm a great investor, my investments have done great, give me some of your money, I'm going to invest it for you, and I can almost guarantee you I'll make you something back. But if you don't, I'll take my own money and I'll give it to you. Then you would have no risk, and you'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
It's two different
And
things.
so you
again, Alex.
volunteered to do
Investing and
that.
banking are two different things, in my opinion. They're
Not
two
anymore.
distinct services. Well, it should be. I think the banks have.
It should be.
Yeah.
Agreed. It should be. Definitely. That's
Yep.
Glass-Steagall.
You should
Yeah,
have
and
the
it should
choice
be.
between one or the other.
Right.
There's no
That I would
functioning-
agree with. If you're really just like, hey, I don't really want to gain anything, or I don't like, I literally just need somewhere to put my money to store it. That and like that should be an option. The problem is that there's no business model there. Like, how does that person make any money running that business?
Every other industry has a functioning model that does that. I mean, money
Yeah,
is no
right.
different
The
than
banking industry
foreign-
does not.
Well, no, banks could do it just like anybody else. They could buy a plot of land and charge people $100 a month to park their RVs and boats on it. I mean,
Yeah, but
same with a bank.
okay,
Could do the same
but
thing.
how would a bank make money if you just so are you saying like the bank takes a cut of you like you I got $100, I want to put it in a bank, I'll put it in there, but now I have
bunch of
90.
money. Yeah, I got a bunch of money, and I want an easy, way. Like when you use crypto, you pay fees, right?
Yeah.
When you
Okay,
spend, when you
that's
spend money,
good
right?
point. Good point.
So if
Mhm.
if I want to put my money somewhere safe, I want to put it in a bank, and I'll pay a small fee for the convenience of them being able to move it, and
And actually hold on to it, not
and
steal
hold
it from
on
me.
to it like they're supposed to. Yeah, and not steal it immediately as soon as they get their grubby hands on it.
Is that I mean, I guess with crypto there is. I mean that is a very valid point actually. That like that there's probably a huge market for people who would prefer that. Is there? I'm curious if there's like, is there not companies that do that? I mean, I guess with crypto, I'm just surprised that
don't,
there isn't a
right?
market. I mean,
Not anymore.
I would think we should
There's not a lot of
start
small
something.
banks.
I don't know,
to do
Richie,
Big
that.
banks
I don't
basically took over.
I don't think there
I
is
know, that's-
because
yeah.
because right now it's all right. I have $10,000 saved up, right? I can go to massive bank A, and they'll say, "All right, you give me $10,000, I'll give you 1% every year." So actually,
Yeah,
you're not losing
You're
money. I'm
losing.
giving you
Giving you a
I'm
better
giving-
offer, yeah.
I'm giving you a little bit of money. Then you go to the guy who isn't going to immediately gamble it away, and they say, I'm going to charge you 1% a year. And most people are going to be like, well, what the fuck? I can be making a little bit of money or losing a little bit of money because it feels so safe and secure and government protected.
Exactly.
that
It doesn't
most-
make
most
sense
people don't-
wouldhout government.
Yeah,
Like,
most people
why-
don't
why wouldn't
realize
you?
that. Yeah.
Why wouldn't
No,
you take
and
the 1%?
I mean,
Exactly.
okay, I think I'm on the same page too.
Yeah, we're
with that
agreeing,
because
Yeah.
my whole point, yeah, like the fact that it doesn't make sense without government. That's the best way to put it. It actually reminds me very much when you put it that way, Nick, that it's the same business model as like social media, kind of, which is like I've said this before that I would much prefer to pay like a couple bucks a month to have a social media account where my data is mine and I own my
Yeah.
data. But
Same.
that business is not going to survive where they're in an environment where their competition is giving you something for free. It seems like, but the only reason it seems like it's free is because people are too dumb or too uninformed or just don't care that they're actually taking your data and using it for their own benefit. Same thing with the banks. They think
Yeah.
it's free, but really what it is they're taking your money and gambling it. Kind of the
Yeah.
same idea.
Should we call it there?
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think this was a great one. Great,
Beautiful. Good talk.
great conversation.
There's a
Yeah,
thing
this
with
is-
social
this is good.
media too, where government has protected them being so big. There's only a couple social media companies, but I forget what it's called. I have to look it up. But there's some kind of protection where like
I could guarantee you right now, if you made like a social media that started getting a lot of buzz, but you allowed for like any kind of discourse on there, you would get shut down by the
well,
government.
that's
because
what it's
fucking
about. It's like
Twitter and
something with-
Instagram and
you could be
Facebook have
sued.
grubby hands all over it.
Yeah, like if I started a social media company, like I could be held legally responsible for the content put on it, but there's some piece of government protection where like Facebook and X and M are not like an it applies to like newspapers. It was like meant to be that like they're publishing companies or
Like
something.
the free press or whatever.
Oh, it's the
Yeah.
is that the D230 thing or whatever it is? Section
I
230.
can't remember. Section 230. That sounded very familiar. I think that's it. But that's government's way of protecting them from any, like the reason they have a monopoly is because government gave them Section 230. If you look at what
Yeah,
Section
yeah, right.
230 is.
It's basically that they're not responsible for they're not considered a publisher, they're considered like a platform.
Yeah.
But if another company were to start up, they would be considered a publisher, and then they're responsible for
We would be held
slander or
to
whatever.
Yeah, we would be held to we'd have a tougher fight. They already have
Yeah.
the market share. They're already, first mover advantage, but we would have, legal problems and stuff if we tried to fight with them. And then they use that to help censor us during COVID and stuff. I mean, they'd haul Zuckerberg in, tell him like, yeah, you're gonna censor this. You're not gonna let people talk about the vaccine, or we're gonna take 230 from you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they use it as like a bargaining chip. I mean I mean it's very, it's very difficult to try to like justify any of that because it's
There
it's
there
obvious
are
corruption.
there are use cases that government does a good thing, but we tried. We had the smallest, most limited government ever when we started this country, and 250 years later, we have the largest, worst government that's ever existed. There is no way to control it. Any positive things you think government's doing for you, it's all or nothing. You either have a government or you don't. And if you have a government, it's going to expand, it's going to grow, it's going to take over. There's no tell me.
I
Think
100%
about
agree with.
that for the next time we talk. How are you going to limit it?
No, I agree.
How are you going to if we could wipe the slate clean, get rid of all this shit we agree on, and dial it back? How are you going to keep it there? Because it
100%
already
agreed. Yes, I mean that's no. I think we are coming to an agreement point. That's also my point, and I'm actually gonna even go. I'm gonna all my point is that I'm gonna take it a step further, and I'm gonna say that when you say let's start a government, I don't think that that governments start because a bunch of people say, hey, we should start a government. I think governments start because a bunch of people get together and start, using their power to advance their interests, and eventually once they have a piece of land that they have control over, now they're the government. I think that's how governments start. And then the reason they write constitutions, the reason they write laws is not because they're like, hey, we're officially going to all choose to start this government. It's because they already control everything, and they're writing these laws and they're starting these constitutions because it's in their interest to do so. Because that limit, that's like, if that's like it's Facebook has terms and conditions. There's no law requiring them to have terms and conditions. They make terms and conditions because that way they have a better job of defending themselves when they decide to do some bullshit, when they decide to ban your account or censor you, just the same way that the government writes terms and conditions so that way they can justify it when they put you in jail or kill you. That's the same thing, but it's not. I'm just the government. I'm saying the same thing with you. You're saying we can't make a small government because we can't restrict them because they will grow and they will become more and more powerful, more and more corrupt. And all I'm saying is go beyond that. We can't have no government because then one will naturally form.
Let's try it. Let's see what happens.
I am good with trying it though. Can't be worse than what we've got.
I agree.
Hopping
Good
off
talk,
here,
though,
boys.
guys.
Yeah, good talk.
All right. Yeah, great conversation, Lou. Much appreciated.
This week,
Run it
Trump's
back.
going to get us the deal. Don't worry, gas prices are coming down.
Yeah.
I mean, we're about to not going to have a nuclear weapon. I've been told that. We don't have to worry about any
Dude, how
nuclear
about
weapons.
How about that guy's ears? I'm still laughing about the ear. You see that one?
Oh yeah, that
your
was
guy
funny.
was good.
Dude, that was
That
like
was
so hilarious. He's like, "What? I didn't hear what you said, but you know who did? That guy.
Yeah,
Look at his ears."
great hearing.
He's got super hearing. Dude, that was one
I
of his
forget what he
funniest ones.
said, but yeah, that sucks. Like when you're there, like you have to kind of suck up to him too. Like that,
Yeah, the guy was
I've
just
been
like,
made fun of for years, his whole fucking life, and then finally has his big moment. He's some rocket scientist, helped us get to the moon, and that's all he's known for now. Guy with big ears.
Dude, that's so that is so funny.
Yeah.
All right, hey, let's do it again.
All right, guys.
Let me know. Let us know
Yeah.
when you want to run it back.
Cool. Do you ever
Sounds good.
post the
All right.
first one?
Yeah, it's up there. I'll send you the link.
All right, I'll have to check it out. Cool. You cut out that stuff at the end, right? We were talking about.
Oh yeah, dude,
There were some
I had to
cuts.
cut
There were some
out.
cuts.
Dude, the episode was like 3.5 hours, and then by the time I was done editing it, it was like 2 hours. It was it was probably like 2.5. I think like an hour got cut out because we were just fucking. Dude, I was like watching myself back. I was like, oh my god, dude. I was like, I was out of it by the second half of that thing. So
Yeah. Well, that's how it goes.
I'm good.
All right, guys.
See you, boys.
all right, see you later.